Hey guys, this is part 3 of What If Kakashi Was Teleported to a Different Timeline. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 11, Trees in the Background. Kakashi stared at the blue-skinned man. Okay, the odds got worse, but they're still pretty good. Zabuza, Itachi, and I should be more than capable of handling one S-ranker. Really, Hashigaki? Said a feminine voice. You just love making an entrance. Following Kisame was a beautiful, busty woman who wouldn't look out of place on the cover of Aika Aika. A woman with a Kiri Hittite and long red hair, a woman who was named Teremi Mei. Who would be the future past? Mizukage, who had 2 insanely powerful bloodlines, and who was smiling at Naruto. Naruto! I didn't expect to see you here, she exclaimed. How have you been? What? Auntie Mei. Naruto waved enthusiastically at the Kiri woman. I'm good. I'm still working on the Uzumaki's secret art of ramen number 12. He gave a loud groan. It's really hard, you know? What? Of course it's really hard. Mei gave a sniff. Did you expect our secret arts to be easy? But really, you should convince your dad to send you over sometimes. She brightened. I can teach you more Uzumaki tricks, and I always love hanging out with my nephew. You have got to be kidding me. Kakashi stared in horror as Mei and Naruto engaged in small talk. Yeah, that'd be so cool. Then Naruto sagged with disappointment. But my dad won't ever listen. He always says that sending my only child into a hostile country ruled by a maniac is patently stupid, even though it's obviously not. Mei made a fist, and her eyes flashed in a way that reminded Kakashi of Kushina's. I'll convince him otherwise. You better believe it. Mei's mouth dropped open as some sort of realization struck. Kakashi immediately became very, very nervous. Whenever Kushina got that expression, someone ended up a gibbering mess. I know, I'll just become the Mizukage, and then Minato will have to let you visit. Everyone stared at the now exuberant woman. Said Kisame, raising an eyebrow at his partner. You do realize that saying that is treason, right? Treason, shmeason. The only treasoning I know is ramen seasoning. That's not, began Kakashi weakly. That's no, but first things first. Completely ignoring Kakashi, she pointed a finger at the Konoha ninja plus Zabuza and Haku. Surrender or die. Except for you, Naruto, but that's besides the point. Sorry, Andy. Naruto made the hand sign for shadow clones. I love you, but I can't let you maim my friends. I understand. No hard feelings. Mei began her own hand signs, calling up a thick mist. At the same time as the family reunion, the 2 swordsmen of the mist were having a conversation of their own. Prepared to meet your end, Hashigaki. Zabuza pulled out his giant cleaver. Let's fight, swordsman to swordsman. Who's the strongest? Which one emerged from the mist that shrouds? You're so fucking dramatic, groaned Kisame. I never liked you anyway. For someone known for silent killing, you just won't shut up. He smiled, displaying rows of sharp teeth. Your death will be slow, alright, kiddos. Kakashi clapped his hands to get the attention of his adorable team. You take care of the jutsu fodder. I mean, the Jonin and Chunin. Yes, sensei, said Sakura, Sasuke, and Naruto, all in perfect sync. They immediately sprung into action, tearing after the first terrified Kiri Jonin they saw. I will protect Team 7. Itachi's tone brooked no argument. See if you can handle the Uzumaki woman. With a disdainful backwards glance, the elder Uchiha vanished. What is with Itachi? Kakashi scowled. 1 minute, we're commiserating the pains of this world, and the next minute, she insults me and disappears. Relationship issues, huh? Said a voice from behind him. Kakashi spun around and blocked Mei's downward kick. That's rough. Kakashi coated his hands with lightning, filling the air with the thick crackle of ozone. Mei leaped back, crouching to avoid the stray sparks. No, nothing like that. He winked, or rather, blinked, considering that only one eye was visible. I'm still very single. Are you interested? Mei giggled as she vanished back into the mist. Ooh, bold. I like that. A plume of lava erupted from his left. Kakashi could feel the heat on his cheek as he sidestepped her attack. But are you hot enough to handle me? He raced through a few hand signs, using his get rid of the mist wind jutsu. I can definitely cool you down. The mist dispersed, leaving a very amused redhead. I'm a little kinky, though. To Kakashi's shock, golden chains shot out of her back and wrapped around his arms. You don't mind being tied down, do you? Mei opened her mouth, and acidic steam curled slowly towards him. What the fuck? Mei actually is an Uzumaki. And she has 3 bloodlines? That's just unfair. Don't worry, babe. Kakashi grabbed the chains and used them to conduct a jolt of electricity. You'll find that I can be quite shocking. In a smooth movement, Kakashi managed to twist out of the chains and raise his headband. Obito's Sharingan spun faster as it tracked Mei's movements. He glanced to the left, noting that Itachi and Team 7 had finished off nearly all the weaker Kiri ninja. However, Itachi didn't seem very happy about her success. In fact, she was glaring at Kakashi. Huh. I wonder what happened. Hopefully, no one got hurt. Oh, how nice. Mei gave a wicked smile. Show me what you've got, White Hound. Hell yes. That's a cool name. Kakashi returned the grin. My pleasure. In the meantime, the 2 swordsmen of the mist were having their little showdown. This is nothing, panted Zabuza, narrowly blocking Kisame's sword. Is this all you've got? Pathetic. Kisame summoned 2 water clones. You've never been good, but your skills have gotten worse. With a swing of Samehada, Kisame forced Zabuza back. His 2 clones took advantage of Zabuza's misstep, swinging their own swords down. Itachi flickered in front of Zabuza, defeating the clones and counterattacking with blasts of flames. Kisame deflected the fire with Samehada, much to the sword's displeasure. That's unexpected. Kisame raised his eyebrows. Why is a pretty lady like you fighting for a man like this? Itachi reappeared behind Kisame, and he narrowly dodged her kick. Kisame swung Samehada around, deflecting the wave of kunai. A few exploded against the sword, temporarily shrouding Kisame in smoke that smelled of iron and ashes. Itachi's eyes spun faster. Nice illusion, said Kisame, dispersing the smoke with a few swings of his sword. I almost believed it. He summoned an enormous wave of water, but it crashed just to the left of Itachi. She counterattacked with a quick bout of taijutsu before leaping back. With a combined shuriken ninjutsu attack, she blocked Kisame's path. Samehada gave a displeased screech at the fire-enhanced shuriken that struck against him. One burning chunk metal slipped from his guard and lodged into Kisame's shoulder. The blue man shook his head as he dodged the second wave of attacks. Damn. Layered genjutsu. I should have known. He gave her a look of admiration as he yanked out the weapon. Casually, he tossed the bloody shuriken behind him. Then, he flared his chakra brightly enough to blind the average sensor. You're good. Real good. Zabuza took the chance to rejoin the battle. I'm not out for the count. He snarled, leaping forward with his giant meat cleaver. Kisame slammed his sword against the other man's skull. Yes, you are. Zabuza crumpled to the ground. A heart-rending scream echoed through the trees. Zabuza-sama! The Chunin fighting against Haku froze instantly, crackling sheets of ice piercing them through. Zabuza-sama! Kisame stopped. He glanced at the impassive Itachi. Besides Mei, who was still occupied by Kakashi, Kisame had no teammates left. Well, pretty lady, said Kisame, baring his teeth in a smile. I think it's time for me to go. We'll meet again. I'll make sure of it. An enormous jellyfish flopped out of the waves. Kisame backflipped onto it, water droplets swirling around him like sparkles. Retreat! He snarled. With that parting greeting, he and his summon disappeared into the water. While other ninja were better at dramatic entrances, no one could beat Kisame at dramatic exits. Kakashi paused in his match with Mei. Shit. Is Zabuza dead? He blinked as a giant jellyfish appeared out of nowhere. What? Is that a jellyfish? The neon-pink jellyfish waved around its tentacles, sparkling brightly in the water. Even more weirdly, Kisame was riding on its back. After twirling elegantly, both disappeared back into the water. But that makes no sense, said Kakashi helplessly. Kisame's a shark. He looks like a shark. His name literally means demon shark. How the fuck does he have a pink jellyfish summon? Mei pursed her lips before sending a gout of lava that almost took off his head. Ah, honey. I'm a jealous woman. You have to give me all your attention. Why? Do you feel threatened by other women? He snarked back. Or giant jellyfish? Wow, you're kinkier than I thought. Mei's eye twitched. I might have pushed it too far. Not at all. Her mouth twisted into a snarl. But you should feel threatened by me. Kakashi created an earthen wall to block the dual acid lava attack. Unfortunately, the wall didn't last long. Kakashi threw himself to the side, springing into a handstand before righting himself. He laughed nervously. Aren't you taking this a bit too seriously? It's a life-and-death battle, you idiot! She screeched. Of course I'm taking this seriously. He made another earthen wall that lasted a few seconds at most. Well? Kakashi tried to think of something witty to say. Thankfully, he was spared from the awkward silence by the arrival of Naruto and Auntie May. Naruto waved while sprinting towards his fellow Uzumaki. His teammates were close behind. Sakura and Sasuke each carried 7 or so unconscious ninja. Guess what? Guess what? What? Said May cheerfully. The slight tensing of her fists betrayed her casual nature. Well, she should be afraid. Her teammates are either gone or dead, and she's surrounded by hostiles. I caught my first S-rank ninja, May beamed. Really, Naruto? Who? He gave a mischievous grin. You! Itachi appeared behind her, whacking May on the head with the blunt end of a kunai. The Uzumaki woman immediately fell unconscious, and Naruto began wrapping her from head to toe in rope. Kakashi stared May, who was currently comatose. Then, he looked to Itachi. She seemed very, very satisfied. You didn't have to hit her that hard, said Kakashi, hesitant. For some odd reason, he felt rather nervous. Itachi smiled, which instantly set off alarm bells in Kakashi's head. No, I did. After the anticlimactic arrest of Gato, a rescue mission to save the wave daimyo that was routine enough to be skipped over entirely, and a quick celebration where the freed villagers promised to build a bridge in honor of Zabuza, the team continued back towards Konoha. At the border between the two nations, Haku and Zabuza, who was still alive, though he was nursing a sore head, bid the team a tearful farewell. I'll never forget you, blubbered Naruto, snot dripping down his nose. You're too pretty to forget, Hakune. He wiped his face, which had the unintended side effect of smearing mucus all over his cheeks. And even though you're not a girl, you're still cool, Zabuza, corrected the man with a grunt. Idiot. Sasuke jabbed Naruto in the side. It's not like they're dead. We'll probably see them again, someday. He paused. We might have to kill them, though. Eyes narrowed, Kakashi glanced at Sasuke, feeling an odd sense of déjà vu. He forced himself to relax. While it was true that the Sasuke from his original dimension had attempted to murder former friends many, many times, this Sasuke was relatively stable, despite being an Uchiha. Unfortunately, Itachi had noticed his slight trepidation, and she was now staring at him suspiciously. Thanks for showing me that cool trick, Haku-san. Sakura bowed to the older woman, smiling in a way that almost seemed normal. Haku smiled back. It was my pleasure, Sakura-chan. Wait. Cool trick? What cool trick? What the hell had Haku taught her? How to sacrifice herself for higher-ranking ninja? Yeah, thanks whatever. We're leaving now. With those charming words, Zabuza disappeared. After a more polite expression of gratitude, Haku followed after her teacher. Well, said Kakashi cheerfully, ignoring the fact that Itachi was still glaring daggers at his back while carrying Mei on hers, all that's left is to go back to Minato. Minato was not pleased. I don't know why I bother to be surprised anymore, he said, pinching his forehead. The fact that you kidnapped Mei, who just happens to be my annoying cousin-in-law, really shouldn't bother me as much as it does. Heaven knows that you've done worse. At the mention of her name, Mei began to stir. Itachi immediately knocked her out, her blow slightly more vicious than it had to be. I don't get what your problem is, Dad, exclaimed Naruto. Auntie Mei's been dying to see me for ages. Now she'll get to see me every day. Shut up, Naruto. You're stupid. Sasuke scoffed, contorting his face in a way that freakishly resembled Fugaku. Nah, you're stupid. Stop calling me stupid. After listening for a moment, Sakura decided to join in. With a bright smile, she said, I will shove a Saban needle up your. The daimyo's wife has put out a new D rank for finding Tora, said Minato mildly. With due haste, the genin made themselves scarce. Now that the children were gone, the temperature of the room went down several degrees. Minato stared at the two Jonin in the room for almost a minute, expression blank. Despite the cold, sweat beaded on Kakashi's forehead. What was Minato going to do? Torture him? Murder him? Assign him another genin team? The possibilities for punishment were endless. Kakashi, you're dismissed. Kakashi blinked. I'm dismissed? He turned to stare at Itachi. Just me? I'm the only one dismissed? This isn't right. This isn't right at all. Kakashi frowned at both Minato and Itachi, wondering what in the world they were up to. While he'd never seen the results of Minato and Itachi's cooperation, since the Yondaime had been dead for most of the young Uchiha's life, Kakashi knew it couldn't be good. Kakashi, you are dismissed. Minato's tone brooked no argument. With a frown, Kakashi flickered out of the room. On one hand, he wanted to get to the bottom of this. On the other, he might end up in the bottom of the ocean if he pried too hard. Minato let out another sigh as his former student vanished. He looked back up at the Uchiha heir, who, as usual, was standing at polite attention despite the presence of an S-ranked nin on her shoulder. "We should probably do something about Mei first," muttered Minato. Itachi stared blankly at him, waiting for her orders. He blinked. "You can put her down, you know." Itachi immediately dropped Mei. Both watched as she slumped to the floor. After a minute passed, Minato signaled for his ANBU guards to take Mei away. "All right, now that she's taken care of." Minato steepled his fingers. "Let's get down to business. What can you tell me about Kakashi, now that you've observed him in action?" "He is loyal to Konoha, Hokage-sama." There was no hesitation or doubt in her words. "He cares intensely for his genin team and for you." She paused. "However, my suspicions were correct. He fights like someone who has been out of ANBU for many years, and several of his techniques were unfamiliar. Even more telling, Hatake Kakashi was constantly surprised during our mission." He gestured for her to continue. "Especially when he was interacting with the clients, Kisame, and Mei, it seemed like Kakashi's expectations were constantly subverted." Her lips twitched downward. "But beyond that, what I found most confusing were his reactions towards Sasuke. He seems constantly on guard when interacting with my younger brother. It is as if he expects Sasuke to attack him at any moment." Minato blinked. "What? Why?" Itachi's frown grew deeper. "Hokage-sama, I do not know." A familiar bird screeched by his window, waiting impatiently with a scroll. With a groan, Kakashi finished his shower. Messenger hawks always had the worst timing. Quickly, he opened his window and extracted the document. Kakashi toweled his head as he skimmed it, growing more and more apprehensive. Once he reached the end, he froze. Wasting no time, Kakashi flickered from his house, heading straight to the Hokage's tower. The Chunin exams were beginning soon, and they were being held in Suna. Chapter 12. No trees in the desert yet. Minato! Fugaku's hand hovered on the hilt of his sword, and his Sharingan spun with erratic fury. "You are not sending Sasuke to Suna, why not?" said Minato, exasperated. "It's Suna. What's the worst that could happen? Besides, I'm going there with my son. You're welcome to come, and I'm sending Itachi there, too." Fugaku paused. "Let me rephrase that. You are not sending my son to Suna with that wretched Hatake, why not?" he repeated, resisting the urge to bang his head against his desk. Sometimes, Minato really wished he'd switched places with Hiruzen, because he's patently irresponsible, sputtered the Uchiha Patriarch. Team 7's first C rank ended up becoming an S rank with hostile foreign ninja. No one got hurt, Fugaku. The Hokage raised an eyebrow. "Besides, your daughter was there on that same mission." "Well?" Fugaku gritted his teeth. His eyes flickered between red and black as he tried to control his temper. "It was probably still Hataki's fault," Minato sighed. "Really, it's—" At that same moment, Kakashi burst in through the window. "Minato-sensei!" he exclaimed, rolling to a stop in front of Fugaku. "You can't send my team to Suna!" Fugaku immediately drew his sword. In a flash, the Yondaime teleported from behind his desk, grabbed Kakashi, and activated his barriers. "This proves my point exactly." Fugaku hacked at the invisible wall blocking him from Kakashi. "He's trying to hurt my son's chances of a promotion. This sorry excuse of a ninja is clearly intent of thwarting my son's career." "Fugaku, literally 10 seconds ago, you didn't want Sasuke to go to Suna." Minato signaled to the ANBU agents that had materialized. They relaxed minimally but remained visible. "Shouldn't you be glad that Kakashi agrees with you?" "Why would I ever want to agree with this degenerate?" The Uchiha pointed at the aforementioned degenerate with his blade. "He's not even wearing a shirt." Fugaku's face turned a darker shade of red, almost matching his Sharingan in hue. "He probably approaches my daughter in such lack of dress." Kakashi looked down. "Huh. I'm really not wearing a shirt," he thought. "I may have been a little overenthusiastic in my rush to get here." Minato pinched the bridge of his nose. "Kakashi, why aren't you wearing a shirt?" He laughed sheepishly. "Well, the hawk gave me the message just after I left the shower, so—" The door opened, and in walked Itachi. After seeing 4 ANBU agents, a shirtless Kakashi being threatened with a blade by her father, and an increasingly annoyed Minato, Itachi promptly turned around and walked out. "See!" yelled Fugaku. "He's defiled my daughter's reputation and her eyes." When is he going to take responsibility for his actions? Minato slammed his hands against the table. I swear to God, Fugaku, you've defiled our eyes plenty of times before. Don't you remember that New Year's party? All that sake went straight to your head, Fugaku coughed once. That was... I have no recollection of what you mention. Really? Minato tilted his head and smiled in a way that made even the ANBU take a step back. I have some photos that could jog your memory. Maybe I could give them to. Mikoto expects me back soon. I must go, Hokage-sama. He sheathed his sword stiffly and turned away. Ensure that Sasuke will enjoy his time in Suna. The door slammed shut, and Minato sighed. Now that Fugaku's gone. At his slow hand sign, the agents disappeared. So, Kakashi, said Minato, turning all his focus to his former student, why don't you want your team to go to Suna? It's Suna, retorted Kakashi, bemused. Why would anyone want to go to Suna? Plus they have a crazy Jinchuriki, a kage that's potentially been taken over by Orochimaru, and sand. Lots of sand. Who in their right mind likes sand? But there are allies. Minato furrowed his eyes, equally bemused. It'll be a great opportunity for your team to get some experience in a non-lethal environment. And Raza's children are competing too, and I doubt that the Kazekage plans on putting them in danger. Raza? Kakashi frowned. Since when has Minato-sensei been on first-name basis with the Kazekage? He internally shrugged. Knowing him, he probably convinced them all to be his friends with a combination of smiles and threats. Well? Minato tapped his finger against his desk. I'm not going to force you to enter them, but I think it'll be a good idea. If you're worried about security, then relax. I'll be there, along with Itachi, Yamato, Kurenai Gai, Asuma, and my ANBU attaché. There's not going to be anything we can't handle. Famous last words, sensei. Kakashi sighed. But I'm not sending him into that treacherous pit alone. Fine, he said, feeling like he'd regret this very much. I'll send my team to Suna for the exams. For obvious reasons, the teams were leaving at different times. Unlike the others, though, Team 7 was accompanied by 2 extra people, Tenzo and his new apprentice Sai. Who's that? Said Naruto loudly, pointing at the pale preteen. Sasuke and Sakura stood beside the blonde, unconsciously in formation. All 3 peered at the newcomer with suspicion. Hello? Sai's smile was clearly artificial, but it was better than it had been in the original universe. His time with Tenzo had done some good then. I am Sai. I love Dango. Dango is the greatest. Do you love Dango? Have you tried it before? Never mind. Okay. Naruto stepped back, disturbed. That's cool, I guess. Ramen is better though. Sai's smile froze in place. What? His eyes narrowed. What did you say? Sakura pushed Naruto aside, taking his place. Your name is Sai, right? She tilted her head. Sai sounds familiar. She grinned, a hint of saccharine sweetness hiding something far more sinister. The former root agent's expression turned blank, but even his root training couldn't conceal his plain terror. Shivering, Sai drew back, stepping behind his teacher. Tenzo turned to Kakashi, eyebrows raised in a way that clearly said, "What the hell?" Kakashi shrugged. Kiddies, he said loudly, this is Tenzo and Sai. They'll be accompanying us to Suna. Sai's already at Chunin, but he's coming along as protection detail. So he technically outranks you. Behave, alright? His eye crinkled. His team mumbled their assent, though not a single one seemed happy about it. Really, Kakashi-senpai? Hissed Tenzo. Can't you call me by my actual name? I'm not in uniform, you know. There's no need to reveal my code name to the genin. Actual name? Since when had Tenzo had a name? No one had bothered to give him a real name besides his call sign. Which was pretty terrible, now that Kakashi thought about it. You don't have a real name. Kakashi frowned. Do you want one though? What do you mean? Tenzo's irritation grew. Of course I have a real name. You do? Huh. Minato-sensei had probably given him one, bleeding heart that he was. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Tenzo threw his hands in the air. Do you think my parents just forgot to name me, or something? You have parents? Since when? Every word expressed Kakashi's pure bafflement. What the hell, senpai? It's not like you don't know them. The ununiformed ANBU agent had long given up on whispering. Is this payback for something? Who are your parents? Asked Kakashi, ignoring his previous statements. And what's your real name? Aunt Tsunade and Uncle Jiraiya are his parents. Chimed in Naruto. His name is Senji Yamato, you know. Gosh, sensei, what did he do to piss you off? If you're pretending to forget his existence, he must have done something pretty bad. What? No, that's not possible, Kakashi said matter-of-factly. You look nothing like them. Jiraiya and Tsunade procreating? And Tenzo being the result? Nope. No way. No, I look a lot like my grandfather, you know. I got the hair from him. Besides, I can use Mokutan. How do you think I got it? Yamato Senju? What? Looked about ready to pull his eyes out. Kakashi raised an eyebrow, not that anyone could see it behind the mask. Orochimaru, the supposed Senju winced. Sure, when Orochimaru kidnapped me, he unlocked those genes, but I needed to have them in the first place, you know. It's not like he could have magically shoved them inside me or something. And wait, why am I even justifying my ancestry to you? Because it's not true, and you know it. If Jiraiya and Tsunade are your parents, then why didn't you come to dinner that night? Pointed out Kakashi. I don't think Minato-sensei would forget to invite his sensei's kid. That makes no sense. What does dinner have to do with any of this? Tenzo massaged his forehead, looking 10 seconds away from strangling Kakashi. Besides, I was on a mission. Sure, Tenzo. Kakashi rolled his eyes. I know that you want a family and everything, but appropriating the Sannin isn't the way to go about it. The trees next to them shivered as Tenzo tried to control his temper. You know what? Let's just go, said the Mokutan user, giving up. We're late as it is, that's what I thought. Kakashi sighed, glad that the crisis was averted. There was no way that Tenzo was anyone's kid. It was just a sad delusion made by an orphan to comfort himself. His worldview intact, Kakashi started the journey to Suna with his team. I swear to God, Naruto, bellowed Sakura as she tried to kick him in the head, if I have to hear another sermon on the superiority of ramen, I will eat your face. She turned around and chucked a kunai at Sai. That also applies to you, ugly. Sai tilted his head, avoiding the dagger. I do not preach about the superiority of ramen, but you won't shut up about Dango, mumbled Sasuke. Stupid Dango. Excuse me? Sai's voice went dramatically up in pitch, before the 73rd fight between the four could break out, thus ending Tenzo's sanity completely. Naruto whooped with glee. Hey! Guys, look! I can see Tsunade. Both Tenzo and Kakashi nearly collapsed with relief. Finally. Had this trip lasted any longer, someone would have died. Now, Kakashi just had to keep them from actually dying during the exams. Naruto sprinted towards the red-haired Jinchuriki. Gaara! He shouted. I haven't seen you in forever. I missed you so much. Naruto engulfed Gaara in an enormous hug. Gaara yawned and patted the blonde lightly on the back. Me too, he mumbled. Wait, Gaara yawned? Kakashi blinked. Naruto's friendship with Gaara aside, why in the world was the creepy-eyed insomniac yawning? There! He did it again! Gaara's eyes drooped, and his head bobbed upwards while he tried to keep himself awake. I didn't get to nap today, murmured Gaara, trailing off into his third yawn. Naruto nodded, as if it was an entirely normal thing for the Gaara to sleep. And nap. And yawn. Ah, the friendship between those two is one of my proudest achievements, said Minato, appearing out of nowhere. Perhaps the Hokage had just arrived normally, and Kakashi had been too busy being distracted by a yawning Gaara to notice it. You know, when I'd agreed to fix baby Gaara's seal, I hadn't expected my own son to become so close to him. You can't help but bring that up, huh? A husky, vaguely familiar voice shifted their attention. You sound like a broken record, Minato. The Kazekage stepped into the room, arms crossed. She? Kakashi opened and closed his mouth, squinting to make sure. He'd met Raza a few times before the Kage's death. This version of the Kazekage looked about the same, short red hair, broad shoulders, tall stature. But Kakashi was pretty sure that this Raza was a woman, if a rather masculine one. Oh, fucking shit, Kakashi thought crossly. The realization wasn't as scarring as, some others. He hadn't known Raza very well. But Kakashi was still opposed to it on principle. He was tired of the universe screwing around with him, damn it. And why was everyone becoming female? The Kazekage is female? Mumbled Kakashi, unable to help himself. Really, but why, Naruto took a break from talking Gaara's ear off to stare at Kakashi. What do you mean, sensei? The Kazekage's always been female. Even I know that Suna's matriarchal. You mean matriarchal? Sakura said, rolling her eyes. At the sound of her voice, Gaara jerked awake. He stared at her, eyes widening. Who's this? He whispered. Oh, that's Sakura. Stay away from her. Kakashi glanced back to the two Kages, no longer interested in the conversations of preteens. Well, Raza, would you prefer I change the subject? Minato smiled brightly. Perhaps I could talk about my son. He already completed his first S rank. Raza scoffed. Well, so did my daughter. Did I mention that my other son is now a puppet master? My son knows how to use the Rasengan. Gaara has sand armor that makes him invincible, and Temari can use gold release. Naruto has chakra regeneration that also makes him invincible. I have 3 kids, and you only have 1, but my 1 kid is better than your 3 combined. Kakashi slowly turned away from the one-upping Kages. Naruto was busy babbling his head off to a dozing Gaara, while Sakura was staring contemplatively at both Jinchuriki. Sasuke was scowling at the floor, which was normal, and Sai was hiding behind Tenzo. Are they at it again? Groaned a red-headed girl with a fan. A red-headed girl who looked a lot like Temari. Yup, that was Temari. With red hair. Why did she have red hair? Kakashi eyed her warily. She wasn't an Uzumaki, was she? Ugh, Mom always acts like that around the Hokage. Kankuro, who looked exactly as Kakashi remembered, sighed with annoyance. At least my son doesn't look like a cat with purple makeup. You take that back, you blonde pansy. You probably spend hours conditioning your hair. Kakashi blinked. Gaara was awake, now, but he was in a staring contest with Sakura. Naruto had started punching Sasuke for some reason, Sai was egging them on, and Tenzo was nervously backing away from the shouting Kage. The 2 Sand siblings had wandered over to Sasuke and Naruto's fight, and were now taking bets. So what if I do? Minato grinned. Why, do you like it? Raza smiled back, showing her teeth. It makes me want to run my fingers through it. And I'll get plenty of chances to do so when I separate your head from your body. Minato blushed. Kakashi blinked again. His teacher had only blushed around Kushina. Why would he be blushing around Raza? Blushing with anger, maybe? Why else? Sure, the Kazekage was a loud, powerful redhead, huh? The sledgehammer of realization smacked Kakashi in the face. Naruto gagged loudly, his fight with Sasuke forgotten. Ew, gross. Kakashi-sensei, let's get out of here. That's a great idea, Naruto. Chirped Kakashi as he compartmentalized his horrified understanding. You know what? For once, Naruto's right. I'm just going to leave. Sensei? Where are you going? Kakashi-sensei? Sensei. With that, Kakashi mentally and physically checked out. I can't believe you just left us there, shouted Naruto. Dad and the Kazekage nearly blew up the whole place, and you just left us there. That's nice, Kakashi mumbled, entirely distracted. He patted Naruto on the head with one hand and flipped through the pages of Ika Married Life with the other. Jiraiya's famed book series was just as good in this universe, but the actual story was different. What? That's nice? That's all you have to say for yourself? Naruto spluttered for a bit, waving his hands as he tried to think of something to say. Sasuke grunted in agreement. Gaara is creepy, announced Sakura. Everyone stared at her. You're one to talk. Naruto scratched his head, his face scrunching with confusion. Besides, that has literally nothing to do with what we're talking about. Sasuke grunted again. He keeps following me. Sakura's eyes narrowed to green slits. He doesn't say anything, but his face keeps turning red whenever I try to determine his motive. Do you think he's suspicious of me? I may have to eliminate him. Kunai calling the shuriken sharp, Sakura. Whoa, whoa! Naruto exclaimed. No one is eliminating anyone. And Gaara's one of my best friends, and that's supposed to convince me not to eliminate him. Sakura rolled her eyes. I think that's a great idea, said Sasuke suddenly. You should definitely eliminate him. Naruto gave a squawk of betrayal. What? For you, Sasuke-kun, anything. Sakura fluttered her eyes at him. Just you wait. Before the exams are over, I'll lay his corpse at your feet. Kakashi looked up from his book. Was Sasuke jealous of Gaara? Yeah, Sasuke was definitely jealous. Kakashi pushed aside a concerning thought about the dynamics of the new Team 7, instead deciding to check the time. As nice as your murderous fantasies are, drawled Kakashi, the Chunin exams do begin in 10 minutes. You should probably get going. Why didn't you tell us before? Howled Naruto. We're gonna be late. Like you, oops. Kakashi made a show of flipping a page. I guess you better hurry then. It'd be a shame if you were stuck as Jonin forever. Ignoring the fact that his Naruto had spent most his life as a Jonin, despite being stronger than most Jonin. After cursing him a little more, ah, what a wonderful sound, his adorable team sprinted away. It'd be such a shame if they'd missed registration. Kakashi giggled at one particularly raunchy scene in his book. And though he was supposed to be with the other teachers, they could wait. It had been a while since he'd gotten to read any new books in the Ika series, and nothing was more important than that. Suna, being as poor as sand, only had 2 parts to its exam. The first was a brutal written test / Clash Royale, and the second was the exhibition matches. The Jonin didn't get to watch the students via video screens, due again to the lack of funding. The arena did, however, have one-way glass through which they could keep an eye on their students. Aren't you worried? Kurenai, who was thankfully normal, though it was debatable if her bandage dress was ever truly normal, sauntered towards him. Nope, said Kakashi cheerfully. Why not? Asuma puffed at his cigarette as he joined his girlfriend. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. My team consists of Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura. I'm more concerned about the other teams surviving them, especially Gaara. Poor kid. He won't know what hit him. Asuma blew out a cloud of smoke. Good point. Kurenai stepped back. Wait, that's Sakura? You've heard of her? Kakashi asked, frowning. Who hasn't? Kurenai looked disturbed. I'm so sorry. Me too. The 3 Jonin had a moment of silence for the genin who would be inevitably traumatized by Sakura. Anyway, said Asuma, once they had properly mourned, it seems like Itachi doesn't share your opinion. He motioned towards the Uchiha, who was staring at the glass like she could burn it with her very eyes. Which she, could, but that was besides the point. Technically, Itachi wasn't a teacher and shouldn't be here. But who was going to tell her no? What can I say? Kakashi's voice was the paragon of innocence. She's just a little overprotective of her little brother, which, in hindsight, was pretty reasonable. And it would still be reasonable if this Chunin exam was anything like the one that had happened in Konoha. Kakashi just hoped that there wouldn't be an invasion. There probably wouldn't be. Why would Orochimaru want to invade a desert? Then again, the universe did love proving him wrong. Kabuto pushed up his glasses. Orochimaru-sama, why are we going to Suna again? At the Sanin's glare, he quickly backpedaled. I mean, not that I'm questioning your impeccable judgment, my lord, but it's a desert. Why are we invading a desert? Orochimaru chuckled darkly. A certain dog insulted me. It's time to teach him a lesson in respecting his elders. His chuckle turned into an all-out cackle that echoed ominously through the trees. Besides, it's always good to visit family, though the reunion won't last very long. My snakes are feeling a little hungry. Chapter 13. Still no trees in the desert. Watching kids take an exam was incredibly boring, even if they were ninja kids who were doing their best to kill each other. Beside Konoha's 4 teams, there were 6 teams from Suna, 3 from Kumo, 2 from IWA, and 2 from Kiri. The teams from the other major villages were full of people that Kakashi didn't recognize, the Kazekage's kids accepted, so they were obviously unimportant. There were no teams from the minor villages, because it was Suna. Kakashi frowned and squinted. Wait, there was one team from a minor village, sound. Well, that wasn't at all suspicious, considering that Kabuto of all people was in it. As well as a pale girl that looked rather like Orochimaru. Kakashi would have to keep an eye on them, even if an invasion was extremely unlikely. The goal of the exam was to answer the questions and turn it in as fast as possible. Only the first 6 teams with correct answers would be allowed to continue to the next exam. Right now, all the kids were furiously cheating and scribbling on the paper. Kakashi peered through the window. His team wasn't even copying off others. Instead, they were transcribing Sakura's string of hand signals. Kakashi blinked. Wait a minute, her hand signals were ANBU exclusive. How did they know that? Apologies for my lateness, shouted Guy, bursting in through the door. All the 4 in Jonin-sensei recoiled, cursed, or prayed to the gods for mercy. Considering that they were all paid killers, said mercy was unlikely, but they tried. The Konoha nin simply winced at the exuberant rainbow beast, somewhat desensitized. I was unaccountably detained on the road of life. Kakashi twitched at the excuse. How so? Asked Asuma, unable to help himself. All the other ninja glared at him. The call of youth required me to share the truth of springtime with my students. Kakashi translated the guy speak and winced, interrupting him before he could continue the tirade. You gave rainbow jumpsuits to your students? He looked through the window. Yup. Team Guy was wearing matching jumpsuits. Indeed. Ignoring Guy's continued ranting, Kakashi ambled away to join Itachi. His team was the first to turn in the paper, and Naruto was now trying to keep Sakura from slaughtering the other teams to guarantee Team 7's passing. Unfortunately, from the height, Kakashi couldn't tell if the other Konoha rookies had experienced any changes, rainbow suits aside. My team did good, said Kakashi, feeling proud despite himself. I bet they're all going to become Chunin. Sure, that hasn't happened since the Sannin, but Team 7 has always been scarier than them. Itachi didn't take her eyes off Sasuke. I do not know if they will pass, she said finally. Kakashi turned to stare at her. What? They are rookies who have barely been ninja for 2 months. Their inexperience will be used against them. He turned back to look at the exam below. Sasuke had set the other exam papers on fire, and Sakura was laughing maniacally, loud enough to be heard through the glass. Naruto began evacuating everyone else with his shadow clones while pleading with the other members of his team to stop. The genin, who was obviously Orochimaru, was staring at Sakura with unabashed shock. Really? Said Kakashi, dubious. Itachi hesitated. An explosion rocked the foundation of the building, shattering the glass windows. Toxic smoke poured into the room. Almost every single one of the Jonin were caught off guard, and a cacophony of swears and shouts filled the room. Several fights broke out as honed reflexes misfired, leading to near or not so near injuries. Baki attempted to calm the Jonin sensei, though his voice was barely heard through the din. I am blaming you. Itachi glared at him, stone-faced, as the smoke billowed around her like a shroud. Kakashi winced. Well, she's not entirely wrong, he thought. Maybe I shouldn't have taught Sasuke how to set fangirls on fire. He ran through several hand signs and conjured a blast of wind, timing it to enhance Asuma's own wind jutsu, and the resulting gale dispersed the smoke. Asuma frowned, clearly surprised by the intensity of the jutsu. Kakashi hid a smirk. Unfortunately, Itachi was much more observant than Asuma. I was not aware that you were proficient with wind release, Itachi murmured. You also used this jutsu during our mission at Wave. She gave him a slow look, her dark eyes narrowed ever so slightly. He laughed sheepishly. I don't think I picked up the fifth element until after Naruto returned from his training trip. Oops. Oh, you know. Kakashi scratched the back of his head. I've been training. She waited. He didn't elaborate. So, said Kakashi, elongating the word, we should probably leave the building. Considering that it's on fire. He glanced at the window. Especially since Sakura's pulled out more explosive tags. Oh shit. Minato was supremely smug despite being threatened by an incredibly furious Raza. Your genin ruined my stadium. She hissed, gold dust swirling around her. It's gone. Unusable. How is that my fault? The Hokage crossed his arms. It's just rookie hijinks. Raza stared at him. The team is from your village. Your son is on it. It's led by your former student. How is it not your fault? Alright, fine, conceded Minato. It may have been partially my responsibility, he chuckled, but most genin can't blow up a reinforced stadium. Either Suna construction is shoddy, or my son and his team have the skill it takes to destroy. We'll see how much skill it takes to destroy you and your silly village. The dust began to spin faster around her. Her coal-lined eyes flashed, but Minato's grin only grew wider. Might I remind you that all 4 of Konoha's teams made it to the finals? How many of your genin made it? He tapped his chin. Oh, right. Just one Suna team passed the first round, despite the exams being held in, oh Suna. Raza visibly forced the gold dust back to the floor. Minato frowned, though it was more of a pout. Why'd you stop? I like your sparkles. An explosion, slightly bigger than the previous one, rocked Suna for the 3rd time that day. The next round of the Suna exams took place in the open desert, probably to avoid further explosions damaging the village. It was a simple elimination tournament, one that the Suna officials insisted was the second exam, though everyone knew that it was really just the prelims for the exhibition matches. The first match was Ino versus Sakura, and Kakashi was struck by a sudden sense of déjà vu. It seems like some things just don't change, he mused. Sakura seemed unfortunately eager for the match, which didn't bode well. Now, Sakura, said Kakashi, eyeing her, let's not maim our fellow Konoha ninja, right? Sakura ignored him, deciding that licking her lips with a too wide grin was a better use of her time. Empty-handed, she entered the hastily drawn circle that was the ring. Kakashi glanced at Ino and froze. He blinked. Ino was a boy. At this point, Kakashi hoped he'd be immune to gender change-induced panic attacks, but Kakashi was still a little thrown. Now that he thought about it, this was the first female-to-male switch he'd seen. I'm not sure what the implications of that are. Beside him, Asuma chewed on his cigarette, scrutinizing the 2 genin for entirely different reasons, hopefully. So, it's your student against mine. Normally, I'd say something about seeing who's a better teacher, but since it's Sakura we're talking about, I'll just leave it at that. Kakashi nodded absently as he opened his book and skimmed the pages. It must be nice having a team full of boys. Ino's probably not an obsessed fan, is he? His friend chuckled. Who said Ino wasn't? Really? Kakashi looked up from his Aika. Huh, I guess that Sasuke's appeal transcends. Sasuke? Asuma's expression was incredulous enough to be comical. No, Ino's a fanboy of Sakura. He twitched. Kind of. It's a little confusing. Kakashi rubbed his ear. Sorry, the explosions must have blown out my eardrums. I don't think I heard you correctly. He gave a weak laugh. For a second, I thought you said that Ino was a fanboy of Sakura. Asuma took a deep drag on his cigarette, exhaling smoke as he spoke. No, you heard right. He's Sakura's fanboy. Kakashi opened and closed his mouth. Once. Twice. He blinked. Kakashi smiled, then grimaced, and finally settled on a neutral expression. For 10 seconds he gathered his thoughts, musing them over with all his vaunted genius, calculating, creating connections with impeccable precision, before summing up his entire analysis. What? Asuma rubbed his face, incredibly weary, looking a great deal like his late father. Apparently, Ino used a mind transfer jutsu on Sakura when they were still in the academy. Ever since then, he'd been babbling about saving the sweet innocent girl hiding inside Sakura's mind. Or something. I'm not really sure. He sighed again. Ino should know better. You can't fix someone with love. Especially not someone like her. Kakashi opened and closed his mouth, but before he could ask questions, the two Kage finally showed up. Their clothes were torn up, as if they had been in a fight or explosion, which had happened. But beyond that, they both looked oddly satisfied, and they were standing really close together, which made no sense, because why would they ever stand next to each other? Or talk to each other? No reason. None at all. Spars can be incredibly cathartic, mused Kakashi. And it isn't often that Minato gets to fight against a Kage-level opponent. Yup. That's what happened. They probably sparred. Let the match begin, announced Raza, running her hands through her messy hair and adjusting her clothing. Ino and Sakura didn't need any further encouragement. The Yamanaka GI boy. The Yamanaka boy tossed a few shuriken at Sakura. She simply tilted her head, letting the shuriken miss her by less than an hair. You monster! Snarled Ino as he sent another barrage. I'm going to free the soul you trapped inside and give her body back. Sakura chuckled, reaching out and grabbing one of his weapons from the air. She examined the shuriken with a critical eye. With a shrug, Sakura tossed it to the side as she approached ever so slowly. Are you concerned about poor little Inner? She took another step. You want to save her? You, the knight in shining armor? Sakura spread apart her arms. Be my guest. Ino hesitated. Go on. Do it. Another step. What are you waiting for? Face set with determination, the boy flashed through hand seals and called out, Mind transfer jutsu. He slumped to the floor. Sakura stood in place, the same small smile on her face, hands still spread apart. 1 second. 2. 3. The crowd murmured as the battlefield remained motionless. The proctor looked from one competitor to another, unsure of how to call the match. Ino's body jerked and shuddered as his mind returned to his body. Then, he began to scream, loud enough to tear his throat apart. Ino scrabbled away from Sakura, still screaming. Those CH chains. He blubbered, scratching at his face. How could you? Ino's words fell apart into meaningless shrieking. Sakura approached, relentless and slow as a glacier. No! Please! Begged Ino. Someone help me! No, no, no! Her shadow fell over him, and her smile grew wider. The boy's eyes rolled into the back of his head, and he collapsed in a dead faint. Sakura continued her approach. Yamanaka Ino is unable to continue. The proctor blurted quickly. The match is over. Sakura's macabre grin swiveled over to the proctor, who flinched back. Sighing, Sakura stepped out of the ring. Everyone, including the medics, stared at the unconscious genin in horrified silence before coming to their senses. Wow, said Asuma, whose cigarette had fallen out of his mouth several times during the course of the short match. I didn't think it was possible for her to get worse, but I guess you did it. Good job, Kakashi. I think you've doomed us all. Kakashi stared at his team. Naruto and Sasuke were cautiously congratulating their giggling teammate. She looked perfectly at ease, as if she hadn't just irrevocably traumatized a fellow Konoha ninja. You know, Kakashi replied slowly, I think you might be right. None of the other matches were quite as horrifying as the first one. Kabuto immediately surrendered when he was matched up against Totally Not Girl Orochimaru. Sasuke's match against Chuji was over so quick that the Akimichi might as well have surrendered, and Shikamaru forfeited halfway through his match with Kankuro. Asuma grumbled a bit about his team dropping out in the first round, but his annoyance had a thick undercurrent of relief. Naruto's fight against Kiba would have been as quick as his teammates had he not stopped to engage in a boasting match. Seriously, that boy would never learn, but those same mid-battle conversations had saved the world more than once, so Kakashi couldn't really judge. In the end, Naruto won with a quick knockout punch, 3-3 or 10-10 or whatever won against the nameless Sound Shinobi, but Temari won in a close match against Lee. Gaara and Shino's was an incredibly boring fight, where both boys stood across from each other, throwing waves of sand and bugs at each other until Shino gave up. The final match, however, was the one that gave Kakashi another severe sense of déjà vu in exactly the wrong ways. Hinata and Neji stood across from each other. Neji's forehead was bare, but Hinata had worn her forehead protector, well, across her forehead. Unlike a great deal of ninja, which begged the question of why they still called it a forehead protector, but that was beside the point. Hello, cousin? Before we begin, I have a question. A scowl twisted Hinata's face. How does it feel to be a thief? Neji raised his hands in the traditional gentle fist style. I stole nothing. Why, you stole my birthright, she snarled. And now you will get what you deserve. Her stance mirrored his. Admit it. You were never meant to be the heir. You're inferior. You can't change fate, Hinata. Neji's sneer grew. And fate willed that I'd get what I deserve. I don't want to hurt you. Forfeit now. People can't change, and you will never change from that shy little girl. You aren't strong enough to avenge our clan. You aren't strong enough to defeat me. The serious monologue is somewhat ruined by Neji's rainbow jumpsuit. I wonder if that was Guy's intention? I saw your eyes drift to the. You know that the match began 2 minutes ago, right? Interrupted the proctor. You see, but you don't understand. The chakra coils on her face bulged as Hinata activated her Byakugan. I had to fight for every scrap after the clan abandoned me for you. I had to fight for me and my sister, for everything, unlike you. The pampered new heir. You'll find that I've changed. Damn it, just start already. The proctor crossed his arms. Seriously, if you don't fight in the next 10 seconds, then I'm disqualifying the two of you. Crazy Konoha ninja, he added under his breath. Yeah! Shouted Naruto from his sand dune. You're both boring assholes that never shut up. Come on, hurry up and punch each other, like you're one to talk. Sasuke rolled his eyes and ignored his teammate's half-hearted punch. Neji finally made the first move, beginning with a quick jab towards Hinata's head. She dodged and retaliated with a strike to his chest, which he blocked with the flat of his palm. Each attack sent a shockwave through the sand. They continued like that, either gaining the upper hand, literally, until Hinata kicked. Caught off guard, Neji blocked with his arm, which promptly fell to his side useless. You blocked my Tenketsu with your feet. Neji jumped back, Byakugan temporarily deactivating with shock. That's right, cousin, she mocked. You stayed the same. I've been working all this time while you've done nothing but stagnate. Much like our dear clan. That's definitely not the Hinata I remember. Kakashi blinked. At this point in time, she was Naruto's shy stalker. Which reminded him. Does she still have a crush on Naruto? I'm not sure. If she does, poor boy. Hinata doubled the intensity of her attacks, and now with one arm, Neji was hard-pressed to defend. Desperately, he attempted a neutered version of 8 trigrams 64 palms. Sand erupted around the two Hyuga, blasting the spectators and covering them with a fine layer of grit. Despite the power of his attack, Neji was forced to abandon it halfway when Hinata blocked it and threw him off balance. Now immobilized, Neji was helpless. Hinata pulled her arm back, and with a burst of chakra, struck Neji in the chest. You just don't get it, do you? She said to Neji's unconscious body, which sort of defeated the point. You'll never win. You're too weak. Hey! Shouted Naruto. You can't just punch people in the heart. Especially if they're Konoha ninja. Hinata crossed her arms. What do you know? She sneered. You're just a spoiled little prince. You've never experienced true suffering. You can't talk to me like that. No one can talk to me like that except Sasuke and Sakura. Naruto pointed at her, face scrunched up. I'm gonna get you for that. The conscious Hyuga laughed. Don't talk to me about vengeance. You don't understand the depths of my need for revenge. Holy shit. Kakashi looked from Sasuke to Hinata. There's 2 of them. Wait, no? Sasuke's not an avenger here. Well, he keeps trying to avenge his sister's virtue, but I don't think that counts. He let out a sigh of relief. The universe, or Kakashi, could only tolerate one over-the-top vengeance seeker at a time. Alright, the proctor grumbled, the match is over. There's no need for any talking, Raza scoffed. Your genin have issues. Minato looked offended at that, but he struggled to come up with a proper response. Probably because she was right. So, drawled Kakashi, staring at his team now that they were back in Suna proper. Congrats on making it this far. Team 7 is the only Konoha team to make it to the final stage with all 3 of its members. Nice teamwork, but it wasn't teamwork. Sasuke frowned. The second exam is only individual matches, sensei. Kakashi obviously ignored his adorable genin. Everyone important is coming to watch, so you better make Konoha proud. You all have 2 weeks before the final stage. You won't know who your opponent is until then, but you should still prepare. Any plans? Probably train with my dad, said Naruto, and I will train with my sister, Sasuke added. Kakashi brightened. Right, everyone's family is still alive. I don't have to do any work then. Well, I guess I'll just train me. Sakura interrupted cheerfully, clinging on to Kakashi's arm. Unlike the others, I don't have any super powerful relatives to mooch off. Bullshit, thought Kakashi, eyeing her hair. You can show me your Sharingan and maybe even some cool jutsu. Like, I don't know, the Chidori? Continued Sakura. You have to pass it down to at least one of your students. She grinned, displaying all her teeth. Please? Well, gotta go, sensei, I am gonna go to my dad, bye guys. Naruto blurted out, quickly disappearing. With a grunt that basically meant the same thing, Sasuke also made himself scarce. It'll be like a sleepover. Her voice was saccharine sweet. Just you and me for 2 weeks. Together, Kakashi gulped. Chapter 14. Do cacti count as trees? Asuma, Kakashi, and Kurenai sat in the hotel room, complaining about their students over drinks. Well, Itachi was there too, because which self-preserving person would tell her she couldn't? All the Jonin had been complaining a lot, and they may or may not have been very drunk. Actually, they were extremely drunk, though everyone refused to accept it. Kurenai held her head in her hands. You know, I always wanted to be a Jonin sensei, she mumbled, eyeing the shot glass. I was so happy to get a team. I just didn't expect my team to be so unstable. I've gotten a loudmouth Inuzuka, an Aburame, and Hyuga fucking Hinata, Avenger extraordinaire. It's such a mess. Tell me about it. Kakashi didn't sigh, but it was a close thing. I didn't expect the team to be worse than before, you know. It was already dysfunctional the last time around. Though their teamwork's now great, I'm left fearing for the world's safety. He blinked and hastily added, you know, with the Chunin exams really pushing everything into overdrive. Yeah, Asuma, on the other hand, did sigh. Kids, man. The next generation of ninja is so batshit crazy. However, that is mainly Kakashi's fault. It always is. Itachi's words were met with vehement agreement by both Asuma and Kurenai. Kakashi ignored them. They were obviously jealous. Did I say? Asuma blinked and frowned. Did I say that the next generation is batshit crazy already? 'Cause they totally are. Shut up, Asuma. Kurenai jabbed a finger in his direction, though with how drunk she was, she ended up pointing at Itachi. You don't get to complain. Your kids are all stable, which is probably why they all flunked out, mused Kakashi, and were practically raised to have perfect teamwork. Kurenai scowled and inched away from Asuma, but her expression would be more threatening had she not been sitting in his lap. I'd kill to make my team that saying, hey, I'm pretty sure that liking Sakura is a clear measure of instability. Asuma said. Everyone fell silent for a moment as they contemplated his protest. He had a very valid point. Kakashi had to admit that, even if grudgingly. Alright, Asuma, you get complaining privileges again. Kakashi nodded his head in a very authoritative, and not drunk, thank you very much, manner. But you don't get to complain about your kids being in the Chunin exams, because they all failed. Asuma seemed a little miffed at that, but he simply sipped his drink a little more. It's so nice to do this, said Kurenai, filling the silence. Gathering together without a war happening. Though, wait. She looked around, realization dawning. Where's Guy? Don't summon him. Hissed Asuma and Kakashi at the same time. Kakashi took cover under the table, and Asuma attempted to follow him before remembering that Kurenai was still sitting on his lap. Training, Itachi answered for them. His Kunoichi student is still in the exam, and I believe he is making her do laps around the village. Of course he is. Kurenai leaned against Asuma and groaned. That man doesn't quit, huh? Even when it concerns his students. Her gaze turned coy as she lowered her lashes. I can't say that I'm much different. I've been training Hinata pretty hard, though she's never needed much motivation for that. Kakashi snorted at her ill-disguised brag. Shut it, Kakashi. Kurenai frowned at him. You have it easy. Everyone else does your teaching for you. Speaking of which. She turned to Itachi. How is Sasuke's training coming along? Very well. Itachi's blank gaze seemed a touch pleased. His progress has been more than adequate. Hey! Kakashi responded a tad late as he crawled out from under the table. I don't slack off on everything. Sure, Itachi's teaching Sasuke, and Minato-sensei's teaching Naruto, but I've still been training Sakura. Asuma winced, and Kurenai made unintelligible noises of sympathy. Itachi suddenly frowned and looked very suspicious. How's that been? Asked Asuma. Kakashi actually did sigh. It's been absolutely wonderful, squealed Sakura, draping her arm around Kakashi's neck. Asuma and Kurenai both overreacted with shock, Asuma flailing around for his trench knives and Kurenai casting and canceling various genjutsu. Itachi, on the other hand, seemed completely unsurprised, but she frowned and activated her Sharingan regardless. I really regret leaving the safety of the table, Kakashi thought with a wince. Sadly, over the last 2 weeks, he'd gotten used to having no privacy as Sakura attempted to steal his eye and/or learn from him. He'd been successful at avoiding the first but not so successful at avoiding the second. Kakashi still refused to teach her Chidori though. Perhaps it wasn't a good idea to teach kids, especially her assassination jutsu, Sakura-chan. Itachi's greeting was stiff and formal. Asuma's, on the other hand, was not so kind. What the fuck are you doing here? He yelped, a thin coating of wind chakra flickering over his blades. Stealth training. Sakura beamed as she tugged on her bandages. She's been stalking me, said Kakashi at the same time. To himself, he muttered, I'm getting so much déjà vu. He wasn't quiet enough, unfortunately, so both Sakura and Itachi sent him twin glares. Kakashi wasn't sure whose was scarier. Stealth training, is it? Kurenai's normally elegant smile was a tad shaky. Do you plan on using that approach in the final rounds? Nope. Sakura seemed more thoughtful than manic. I'll probably terrify them into submission instead. Her arm snaked further around Kakashi's shoulder, and her fingers reached for his headband, itching for the Sharingan underneath. With honed instincts and exasperation, Kakashi batted her fingers away for the 1000th time. Bad Sakura. He flicked her on the forehead just as she turned her gaze towards Itachi's still red eyes. What did Itachi and I tell you about eye theft? She grumbled but said, to reserve it for filthy non-Konoha ninja. Exactly. Next to Kakashi, Itachi nodded with approval. It had taken some convincing from the both of them, but Sakura had eventually learned the lesson that her probable relative hadn't. Actually, now that he thought about it, Kakashi really had to get back to Tsunade and make sure. At this point, he didn't know what was worse, Sakura being related to Danzo, or Sakura not being related to Danzo. Kurenai opened and closed her mouth before faintly saying, I see. You've been learning some, interesting things. She blinked. Well, I'm sure you'll do well, no matter what approach you take. You bet. Sakura showed her teeth in something that was definitely not a smile. I just can't wait. Kakashi's 2 weeks of hell were over. They were finally at the rebuilt stadium, which was bigger and grander than before. Ninja could use Earth Jutsu, so why the hell would it take longer than 2 weeks? Considering the frequency that buildings were blown up and villages destroyed, they had plenty of experience. The shimmering, gold-painted seats were packed with merchants and nobles. The higher up they sat, the richer they were. At the very top were the Kage, though only 3 were present, Minato, Raza, and Yagura, of all people. After an overly dramatic entrance involving fireballs, the proctor, whose name resembled Pakin's to an uncomfortable degree, announced the matchups. Kakashi was a little miffed that she'd gotten the dramatic entrance. That was his job. Suna would probably attack him if he tried it, but still, he'd lost his chance this time. He'd only been 5 minutes late due to the unlikely possibility of an invasion. The first matchup had Kankuro with a bye. That brought grumbles of favoritism by the non-Suna ninja, but favoritism was basically a fact of ninja life. The first actual battle, which had Tenten versus Temari, went basically as before, though Temari dominated even more. Not only did she have a giant fan to blow away all the weapons that Tenten threw, but Temari also had magnet release. It did not go well for Tenten. Guy sobbed about tears of youth, but he hurriedly assured his student that he was proud of her with a gigantic hug. Because the two were still in the fucking rainbow jumpsuits, so God please, Kakashi and everyone present erased the touching scene from their memories. The second match was Naruto against Hinata, which made Kakashi either want to laugh hysterically or bang his head against the seat. Instead, he gave a thumbs up as his knucklehead student rushed into the arena. Then, Kakashi settled into his seat, eager to watch the show. This was going to be an absolute train wreck, but damn if it wasn't going to be an entertaining one. Naruto pointed dramatically at Hinata. I'm going to avenge Neji, just so you know. Hinata's white eyes narrowed. Don't speak to me about revenge. You don't understand. You never will. She held her hands out in front of her in the loose style that the Hyuga favored. Besides, Neji's not dead. You can't avenge the living, that's what you think. Naruto paused and frowned. Wait, no? I didn't mean it like that. Neji's still alive. I meant the part about avenging the living? You know, since you said that I can't. He flailed a bit as he tried to figure out what to say. And, I don't like people telling me what I can't do. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, believe it, he brightened. Yeah, like that one time my dad told me I couldn't eat 15 bowls of ramen and, in the stands, Sasuke rolled his eyes. I can't believe that I'm on a team with that idiot. He'd better win, though. People consumed by revenge are pathetic. He gave a decisive nod. That's what my sister told me. Kakashi burst into giggles at this, but his adorable students ignored him, thoroughly desensitized to his behavior. Itachi, however, gave him a weird look, and she's never wrong, mocked Sakura, dodging Sasuke's kick. But I agree with you. Naruto will make us look bad if he loses. I'll beat him up if he doesn't win. Sasuke nodded, though he gave her a wary glance. And then we'll get revenge on Hinata. Exactly. Itachi gave a short sigh. I think he missed the point of my lecture, she murmured. Your lecture? Kakashi peeked over his latest book, Ika Next Generation, which also didn't exist in his world. Jiraiya had written a prequel instead. Yes, the one on the futility of revenge and the cycle of hatred. I give it to all the younger Uchiha before they enter the academy. She frowned at him. Don't you remember? You helped with the last one. It's a really good idea, considering the clan's track record, thought Kakashi. He scratched his head at her suspicious look and turned to his students. I'm so glad that you decided to put aside your differences to prey upon other Konoha ninja. He ruffled their hair. Remember, don't do anything I wouldn't do. Kakashi frowned. Actually, scratch that. Before Kakashi could give his genin more detailed restrictions, the proctor had gotten tired of Naruto's ongoing speech and demanded that they start. Hinata wasted no time, lunging for him, fingers outstretched. With a puff of smoke, 20 Narutos appeared in front of her. She was initially slowed by the barrage, but after discovering that it only took a quick poke to dispel the clones, she returned to her former speed. Ha ha! Said 3 Narutos from behind her. Together, they were making a Rasengan. Kakashi blinked. Minato-sensei taught him it already? He, and most of the stadium, turned their gaze to the yondaime, whose expression was a mixture of surprise, pride, and sheepishness. Hinata backed away at the sight of a spinning sphere of chakra death, her anger fading into wariness. Well, that was probably a good decision. Kakashi supposed that the Rasengan was even more infamous since Minato was still alive. What you gonna do now? The Narutos taunted as they approached her. Neji, this is for you. Lightning fast, Hinata dashed forward. Her outstretched fingers stabbed at his hand, and the Rasengan flew to the side, blasting a chunk of the wall. 2 Naruto clones dispersed due to the sheer force of the explosion. Huh, said the remaining Naruto, staring at the hole. I didn't know you could do that. Even Hinata looked surprised for a moment, blinking at him instead of immediately going on the offensive. Naruto was the first to make use of the lull. He brought his hands together, took a deep breath, and spit a burst of water straight into her face. Her eyes narrowed as the anger returned tenfold. She stood shaking, as water dripped from her soaked hair and clothes, gathering into a puddle by her feet. Oh shit! Language! Barked Minato from the stands. Hinata began chasing him, her jabs becoming juke grabby hands. Just as Naruto gained enough distance, Hinata flickered in front of him and kicked him hard enough to break his ribs. Had Naruto not burst into smoke, hands erupted from the ground, grabbing Hinata and pulling her into the ground. Hinata, of course, did the reasonable thing and jukened the hands, also turning them into smoke. Instead of being submerged to her head, Hinata was only trapped until her knees. That too was easily solved with a rendition of the 8 trigrams palms, revolving heaven. The audience murmured and coughed as, for the second time this battle, a pressure wave of dirt was thrown into the air. The dust settled, and a perfectly round crater stretched around Hinata. 50 Naruto clones burst out of the ground, and the battle resumed. She's really good, murmured Sasuke, contemplative. I guess the rumors about her strength weren't so exaggerated, Sakura scoffed, but it wasn't as dismissive as it could have been. I could take her. She whipped her head to stare at Sasuke. You aren't interested in her, are you? Sasuke turned pale. Please don't hurt me. Itachi's Sharingan activated, and Kakashi was beginning to be seriously concerned. For who exactly, he didn't really know, but he was concerned. Damn it, actually. Sakura tapped her chin, contemplative. She also has an ocular bloodline. If you really insist, I wouldn't mind her as our concubine. Wow, Sakura, that's messed up. Naruto squeezed between the two, which was probably for the best, considering that Sasuke was beginning to hyperventilate. No, seriously, that's super messed up. Sure, Hinata's a little weird and angsty, but I don't think she deserves that. Out of reflex, Sakura punched him. He didn't pop. Instead, he cursed and rubbed his arm. Naruto, said Sasuke, giving him a look that was both baffled and grateful. What are you doing here? Naruto shrugged, mumbling something about needing to rescue his best friend. Sakura sniffed. Well, you're down to 10 clones. If you want to win and not completely disgrace Team 7, you'd better get back in there. Frowning, Naruto squinted at the stadium. I guess you're right. With a couple hand signs, Naruto substituted with one of his clones down below. Suddenly, the field was again awash with more clones. I swear, Sakura said, rolling her eyes, can he do anything besides making shadow clones? There's that water jutsu, Sasuke offered. And that other water jutsu. Well, now there's the Rasengan. Speaking of which, Naruto had conjured several Rasengan using his clones. Guess what? I know the Rasengan now, announced Naruto a little belatedly, considering that he'd already used it several times during the battle. So take that. Hinata narrowed her bulging eyes. Why, you're not the only one who knows advanced techniques. She fell into the stance that preceded the 8 trigrams palms revolving heaven. With a roar, the multiple Narutos leaped at her with a Rasengan. Hinata spun, creating a tight sphere of chakra, and promptly slipped on a puddle of water created by Naruto's earlier water jutsu. Naruto didn't fail to take advantage. One clone held her down, and the other 2 held a Rasengan above her head. Forfeit! He yelled. The proctor watched, body tense as she prepared to call the match. Hinata snarled. Her Byakugan bulged again, and her hand darted upwards, right towards Naruto's face. She squawked, taken completely off guard by a different pair of hands that burst out of the ground, pulling her head straight down into the dirt. Hinata, Kakashi mused, now resembles a turnip. Her legs dangled in the air as the rest of her flailed underground. Match goes to Uzumaki Naruto! Shouted the proctor, and the stadium burst into raucous, thunderous celebration. Minato, of course, was the loudest. While the proctors began digging Hinata out, Naruto joined the rest of his team. Kakashi crinkled his eyes, clasping his student on the shoulder. Well done. Thanks, sensei. Beaming, Naruto flashed a thumbs up at his teammates. Sasuke nudged his friend in response. I knew you could do it. I didn't, but it was a pleasant surprise. Sakura flipped her hair. Good job with not disgracing us. The Suna ninja had finished restoring the stadium with Earth Jutsu, and the proctor brought everyone's attention back with another flashy fire jutsu. The next match, she announced, will be Gaara of the Sand versus Haruna Sakura. Well, shit. Kakashi turned his attention to his student's opponent. He was currently staring at Sakura with wide, blank eyes. Mother. I want her, he said loudly, tone as flat as his eyes. So Gaara still spoke to Shikaku, huh? Knock yourself out. We have to learn from our own mistakes, sighed Raza. Oh, right. Gaara actually had a mother. Remember what I told you about the crazy ones? Take them to bed because they make the strongest children? Exactly. Beside Raza, Minato smacked his forehead loud enough to be heard throughout the stadium. He began to say something about parenting, but he quickly gave up, realizing that it was a lost cause. The 2 borderline psychopathic genin, or so Kakashi assumed. Gaara seemed pretty well adjusted, actually, the whole wanting Sakura thing aside, made their way to the arena. Sakura stood in her usual, relaxed position, but her grin was too large to be natural. Gaara yawned, but his eyes were still intensely focused on his current fixation. Begin! Gaara made the first move, gently sending a weak wave of sand. That was lackluster. Kakashi paused. Oh dear, he wasn't going easy on her because of his crush, was he? Poor Gaara. Well, he'd brought it on himself. Sakura hopped over the pathetic sliver of sand and dashed towards him, kunai drawn. He sent a stronger wave, and Sakura easily dodged and retaliated by throwing a kunai behind him. She flickered in front of him, and with a perfect substitution, switched places with her kunai. Weapon in hand, Sakura lunged. Caught off guard, he reacted with true, powerful blast of sand. Undaunted, Sakura simply chakra walked up the looming wall of sand. With a quick flip, she was behind his defense. Gaara blinked, seemingly impressed, but that was quickly pushed aside as Sakura began a barrage of attacks. In all Kakashi's time of teaching her, Sakura had never used more than the basic Academy 3, plus or minus the occasional genjutsu or technique that Kakashi had taught her. Despite that, she'd managed to put a Jinchuriki on defense. That's pretty terrifying, he mumbled to himself. Itachi inclined her head, her Sharingan activated as she watched, something she hadn't done for any match prior. Gaara grew more and more terrified as he sent wave after wave of sand, attempting to engulf her or hit her or even touch her, but Sakura was too fast. Her reaction time increased with each attack, outspeeding the sand defense by a larger and larger margin, and just as she stabbed downwards with a kunai, an explosion racked the stadium, and Kakashi had never seen anyone look as relieved as Gaara to see an invading force of S-ranked ninja. Down came Jonin, flying from the hole in the ceiling like an angel with paper wings. In her arms was pain. Kakashi grimaced, remembering what had happened the last time they'd met. Dying hadn't been very pleasant. That aside, the two Akatsuki were recognizable and matched his memory of them. It was a small consolation, but Kakashi would take what he could get. "Hi guys!" shouted Pain, smiling brightly. "How's it going? We're here to steal the Jinchuriki. It's gonna be super awesome, since 3 of y'all are conveniently in one place." Kakashi opened and closed his mouth, deciding that it'd be best for his sanity to completely ignore Pain's obnoxious cheerfulness. This version had a little too much Uzumaki in him. Yeah, that seemed like a good explanation. Satisfied, Kakashi scanned the stadium, noting that the rest of the Akatsuki had appeared in strategic locations throughout the stadium. They were too far away to examine for differences, which was probably for the best. "Oh, and I have another announcement." Pain snapped his fingers, and Conan spun in the air, sending flyers everywhere. Kakashi grabbed one and stared. "Akatsuki, S-rank Nin at discount." It read, "And guess what?" Pain spread his arms. "If you use the promo code Chunin exam, you'll receive 15% off." That was the last straw. Affronted by their blatant undercutting of prices, the ninja in the stadium burst into action, and the stadium erupted into pandemonium. Kakashi groaned. Fucking hell. An invasion. Of course, the universe had to throw the Akatsuki at him just to prove him wrong. Why did he even bother anymore? It was time he'd accepted the truth. The universe would go to any length to make his life hell. Chapter 15. Now, there are trees in the desert. The totally Orochimaru girl stared at the invading Akatsuki with a scowl. Clearly, she was annoyed that the Akatsuki had stolen her thunder. It was enough annoyance to make her literally tear off her face and announce her, well, now his own invasion. "I am Orochimaru of the Sannin," he hissed. "Prepared to suffer." The planted sound promptly attacked, adding more to the chaos. Poor sand. Kakashi grinned. Their stadium blew up for the second time, and they're suffering a double invasion. He tried to muster up more sympathy for them but failed, considering that they'd done the same to Konoha. He glanced back down to Orochimaru, and almost ran into a kunai in shock. That cockroach was talking to Sakura? Oh no. 100 worst-case scenarios ran through his head, and no combination of Sakuranzo or Orochimaru could ever be good. No, absolutely not. After chucking a sound ninja into the wall, Kakashi hopped down to the arena, prepared to attack someone. "You are talented and intelligent," murmured Orochimaru, joints creaking and popping as he unfolded into his adult body. "I know how Konoha treats us clanless shinobi. Join me and I will give you everything you desire. Knowledge, respect, power. That would be more convincing in a Konoha that wasn't literally led by a clanless shinobi," thought Kakashi as he gathered chakra, waiting for Sakura's answer. "I don't need charity." Sakura smiled sweetly and twisted into a roundhouse kick. "I'll seize power by myself." That was not really the response he was hoping for, but it was passable. Sort of. Well, she was attacking Orochimaru, and that was good enough for him. Kakashi uncovered his Sharingan, and with a burst of speed and lightning, tried to stab Orochimaru in the head. The snake Sannin twisted back at an impossible angle, dodging the attack. If it isn't the little dog. Orochimaru's tongue flicked out and lengthened, wiggling for emphasis. It's time to teach you some manners, Sakura. I'll handle this. Go join up with the boys, cut in Kakashi. Handle the low-level sound fodder and keep out of trouble. Sakura gave a sharp nod and flickered over to Naruto and Sasuke. Kakashi felt a burst of pride as the trio fell into formation. Teamwork. It almost made tears come to his eyes. As I was saying, began Orochimaru. A flash of light and chakra interrupted him again, and every ninja immediately looked up at the Kage balcony. Minato had disappeared. Before Kakashi could finish his thought of where'd he go, Minato returned with Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Mei. Of all people, Kakashi snickered at Orochimaru's look of horror. I think you need to postpone the lesson, drawled Kakashi, ambling away as Tsunade's fist made a beeline for Orochimaru's face. Then, a thought struck him, and Kakashi turned back around. Kabuto, who'd been in the middle of sneaking up on him, gave up on subtlety and attacked. Kakashi blocked the shuriken. Tsunade-sama, I need to ask you a question. Tsunade paused in her suplexing of Orochimaru, who was mouthing Tsunade-sama, while trying to stab his former teammate. I'm a little busy, brat. Not now. I think now's a great time, he said brightly as he kicked an unenthusiastic Kabuto in the face. So, remember that hair I gave you? What's the result? Is Danzo related to Sakura? Wait, what? Blurted out Orochimaru, almost dropping his sword. His head snapped to Sakura, who was in the middle of terrifying everyone in her vicinity, Sasuke and Naruto included, with shrieking laughter. It burned down. Tsunade's arm knit back together, as she simultaneously healed a bleeding kunoichi from a distance. Now it was Kakashi's turn. Wait, what? I kept the samples in the lab for genetic analysis, and that night, the whole place burned down. She shrugged. Nothing I can do unless you get me more hair. Oh, come on. That's not fair. Kakashi sighed as he dodged Kabuto's glowing scalpels of death. Well, thanks anyway, Tsunade grunted, which could have meant either yeah, or die, Orochimaru. Probably both. After watching her rip out Orochimaru's femur, and Kabuto's hasty retreat, Kakashi decided that he shouldn't interrupt her battle anymore and wandered off to lend his services to someone else. Seeing Minato in action reminded Kakashi of how scary his teacher was. He was everywhere at once, disappearing and reappearing in 50 different battles. Anytime an enemy ninja came close to Naruto, he'd flicker down, stab them, and return to a different fight. Minato was simultaneously the support, the defense, and the attack for everyone. He probably didn't need Kakashi's help. Similarly, Jiraiya was trading blows with Nagato and Konan. Boy, Kakashi really hoped alternate history wouldn't repeat itself, but he was holding his own with Minato's help. Kakashi was about to lend a hand anyway when Orochimaru fled like the cockroach he was, freeing Tsunade to help her husband. Oh God. That is still not okay. Who authorized that? His team needed so much help. So much. Not now, but in general. Because Kakashi wasn't a therapist, he settled for sending his nindogs to them so that Team 7 could finish cleaning up the sound nobodies that hadn't retreated. Since the important people were covered, Kakashi gave himself a moment to take stock of the situation, namely the Akatsuki. Konan and Nagato were covered by the Sannin and Minato, while Raza and Minato handled Deidara. Life is meaningless, mumbled the explosive specialist as his clay birds blew up Raza's golden defense. His hair was dyed black to match his nails, and his eyes were rimmed with thick black makeup. Art is pointless. Why do we even try? Okay, Kakashi wasn't going to touch that with a 50-foot pole. Moving on. Guy, Asuma, Kurenai, and Minato were fighting Haiden, who was still ranting about how Jai-Shu or something was the only god, and, wait, was Mei fighting Yagura? It took him a just second to connect the dots. Oh, come on, sensei. Taking opportunity of the chaos to orchestrate a coup? Really? But that wasn't any of his concern, so he focused on locating the other Akatsuki. He didn't see any of the others, so they either didn't join the little invasion, or they were outside the stadium. Ah shit. Was Obito going to show up? Kakashi knew he should be feeling angsty about meeting his old friend turned megalomaniac again, but he was honestly more concerned what kind of fucked up version this dimension had. Speaking of fucked up versions, where was Itachi? Wasn't she supposed to be glued to Sasuke's side? And where was Tenzo, for that matter? Oh, well, now he knew who needed help. Not far from the stadium, Itachi and Tenzo, and not Minato, unfortunately, were facing off against Kakuzu, who, despite being dressed in shades of lilac and blue, seemed to be the same money-grubbing psychopath he knew and hated. Itachi wasn't having much trouble, frankly, but Tenzo was struggling. He used only taijutsu and kunai, and against the S-class ninja, it wasn't going so well. They'd taken out the lightning and fire hearts, but that still left 3. Perfect. Surprise! Said Kakashi dramatically, appearing in the middle of their heated battle. Itachi just managed to redirect her lance of searing flames away from his head, but from the look on her face, she was regretting it. So, what do you say we each kill a heart? There's one for each of us. I call wind. With 3 against 1, this wouldn't be too hard of a fight, Kakuzu snarled, leaping over the stone wall that burst from the ground. No, I'll be taking one of yours. Unfortunately, before Kakashi could snark back, Kakuzu got reinforcements of his own. A surge of chakra was the only warning, and the 3 of them barely managed to leap back from the whirlwind. I told you we'd meet again, pretty lady. Kisame grinned, his sharp teeth gleaming. He gave a lazy swipe at her feet with his sword, more of a flourish than an actual attack. Itachi resolutely ignored him and doubled her blasts of fire, the slight twitch in her eye the only sign of any irritation. Lovely, thought Kakashi. He should have known better than to think it'd be easy. At least we're far from the ocean and away from any fucking jellyfish. After twisting to dodge Kisame's water shark in the desert, which made him reevaluate the likelihood of jellyfish, Kakashi grabbed Tenzo by the armor and yanked him out of the way of an earthen spike. I'm so disappointed in you, he sighed. In who? Tenzo said, replying like the good little minion he was. He ducked under Kakuzu's weird tendril things before parrying a slash from Kisame. You, of course. Kakashi shattered a tendril with a surge of lightning, preventing it from impaling the aforementioned good minion. You're fighting like a rookie genin. If they weren't in the middle of a life-or-death battle, Tenzo would have thrown up his hands. What do you expect? My entire fighting style is based around the Mokutan, and there are no trees. I must agree with Hataki-senpai in this matter, murmured Itachi. Relying on one fighting style is imprudent. Kisame said something, but Kakashi was too wrapped up in a sudden realization. Wait a minute, Tenzo, you're a genius. Didn't you just say I was a rookie genin? There was no point in hiding his abilities anymore. Fighting at less than full strength against the Akatsuki would lead to yet another trip to the afterlife, minus the resurrection. Oh, fuck it. Itachi, cover me for a moment. She gave him a dubious look but nodded. Kakashi didn't need to raise his forehead protector. He was already using his Sharingan because he wasn't an idiot. Still, he took a deep breath and prepared himself. Mangekyo's Sharingan. Everything shifted, revealing the red and black overtones layering this world. Itachi's eyes widened, her own Sharingan glowing like embers. Kakashi turned away and focused his gaze not on their opponents, but above them. Kamui, a wormhole formed above them, air warping and twisting as the fabric of reality tore apart. There were some moments that were legendary. Some moments, even in the thick of battle, could make all the shinobi collectively pause in awe. What separated the good shinobi from the rest was how long that pause was. Minato's famous evisceration of Iwa's army, the moment he first used the Hiraishin in the Third War, was one of them. The Sannin against Hanzo counted as well. Kakashi dropping a forest on Suna was another. Even Kisame and Kakuzu couldn't help but pause when the trees of Konoha's training ground 3 materialized around them. Holy shit, said Kisame. What the fuck, agreed Tenzo. Then, he clapped his hands together, and the trees moved. Itachi and Kakashi blurred in sync with the attack, freed from having to cover their teammate. Kakashi tore through the water heart with a shrieking fist of lightning, Itachi ripped apart the fire one with a kunai, and Tenzo skewered the last with his mokutan. The body of Kakuzu slumped to the floor, purple mask and all. Killing him was just as satisfying as the first time. Now that I have time to think about it, the color scheme is kinda weird, mused Kakashi. He turned to Kisame, whose wide grin had a distinctly nervous tint to it. Still, he swung his sword a few times, flaring his chakra. Itachi tensed, and Tenzo made a hand sign in preparation, but Kakashi just frowned. Wait a minute. Kakashi blinked. Weren't you a loyal Miss Ninja just 2 weeks ago? He was so used to thinking of Kisame as Akatsuki that seeing him in that coat hadn't set off any alarm bells. Yeah, but Yugura wanted my head for failing that mission in Wave. Kisame scowled, and his sword bristled. I like my head, so I hightailed it out of there. Oh. In that case, Mei's trying to kill Yugura right now. If you get there in time, you might be able to lend her a hand. Kisame squinted at him, clearly suspicious, but after a moment, he nodded. Even if Kakashi was lying, running away from the trio was the better option. Thanks, he said finally. Kisame winked at Itachi and hefted his sword on his shoulder. I think I'll do that. And I'll see you around, pretty lady. With that, he disappeared. The exasperation radiating off Itachi was enough to fry a lesser man. Was that necessary, Hataki-senpai? She asked. Disposing of him may have been the better option. I'm just surprised you didn't murder him for flirting with your girl, mumbled Tenzo. He turned pale at their twin glares. Speaking privileges, Tenzo. Kakashi's sing-song was anything but friendly. Tenzo grumbled something moderately offensive before stiffening and pointing an accusing finger. Wait a minute, these are the trees from Training Ground 3. The one I had to regrow. So it was you, Kakashi shrugged. Well, it worked out in the end, didn't it? It really did, said a different voice. All three of them flew into action, trees and fire and lightning flung at the strange person in the shadows. All their attacks simply passed through the hooded figure, felling the tree behind but leaving the person untouched. Oh no. Oh fuck. I was going to stay back and let the rest of the organization handle it, but you have made things very easy for me, my dear Kakashi. A figure in an Akatsuki cloak and a familiar orange mask stepped forward, Obito, who was shorter than he remembered, and more slender. Almost like, no. Obito was not a girl. He was not. Absolutely not. No. Anything but that. Anyone but that. Kakashi was so paralyzed by horror that he almost died by stake through the heart. Only Itachi's timely involvement kept him from becoming grotesque, literal scarecrow. Fucking hell. Obito can use Mokutan, too. I just gave him, not her, please, a weapon wrapped in a bow. Her, Sharingan I spun, drifting in and out of the final stage. What's wrong, Kakashi? Didn't you miss me? The voice was much higher, too. I'm trying to counteract her Mokutan, said Tenzo, panting. But she's good. Itachi wove in and out of the attacks, simultaneously protecting the frozen Kakashi and putting the masked figure on the defense. Don't you know who I am? Taunted Obito. We're old friends, you know. Finally, Kakashi started to react. Obito? He said slowly. It can't be, but your eye, it matches mine. It felt like he was acting out some sort of demented script for the second time. Of course not, Obito hissed. You killed him. How could I be him? The adrenaline started to give his thoughts crystal clarity. No, there were too many inconsistencies. The person's hair was straight. And brown. No, don't you remember me, Kakashi? Poor, pathetic me? She tilted her head, avoiding Tenzo's attack. Then, she reached up and took off her mask. Mismatched eyes, one red and the other brown, stared back at him. She smiled. It's been a while, old friend. Rin? For the second time, Kakashi was almost impaled by the Mokutan. This time, Tenzo came to his rescue, breaking the tree branch before it reached his head. Who's the rookie Jonin now? Tenzo muttered, but Kakashi was too busy having his millionth existential crisis to respond. No, that was worse. When he'd said anything but female libido, he didn't mean this. Could he have female libido back, please? Thank you very much, he'd rather have her than her. This was all his nightmares in one package. Instead of having Nightmare Rin scream at him, he was having an alive, Sharingan-wielding Rin scream and try to murder him. We need to retreat, said Itachi, attempting to stab Rin and narrowly avoiding her counter. We must return to the stadium and the Yondaime. Oh, you think your yellow flash will save you? She let out a bestial snarl. He can't save anyone. He didn't save Obito, he didn't save me, and he won't save you, Kakashi. I'll take my chances, said Kakashi, trying to smile but honestly feeling like the sky was crushing him. Or maybe that was the tree trunk that had just slammed into his side. With that, the trio bade a hasty retreat. Which is why we should be friends. I mean, we're already family, right? You're Uzumaki, I'm Uzumaki, and Mei's Uzumaki. We'll all be Uzumaki together. You're the leader of Rain, and he just became the Mizukage, and I'll be the Hokage when I'm older. So, instead of having a plan for world peace using the tailed beasts, we should install Uzumaki in the leadership of every village and get peace that way instead. Finished Naruto, beaming. Nagato, who had been thoroughly beaten by Minato, Mei, Raza, the Sannin, and even Naruto, he'd gotten a few punches in, nodded weakly from the crater in the ground. I see. Think about all the ramen we could make, lol. He wheezed, starting to convince me. With a weak laugh, Nagato closed his eyes. Minato ruffled his son's hair, fondness and nostalgia in his smile. Your mother used to do the same thing to her enemies too. They could never stand up to her logic. Before they could reminisce too deeply, a forest appeared outside of the stadium. What? Minato blinked. Wait, what? Slowly, he turned around, making eye contact with everyone else. Is it just me, he said mildly, or is there a forest in Suna now? Raza descended from her cloud of gold, cloak flaring as she strode over to Minato. Why the fuck is there a forest in my village? She grabbed Minato. Did you do this? So it's not just me, Minato mused, completely unconcerned with Raza's glare. Am I hallucinating? Jiraiya strode over, rubbing his eyes. I feel like I might be. Genjutsu? He flared his chakra and grimaced when the forest didn't disappear. Tsunade, whose chakra control was far too advanced to ever get entrapped in an illusion, shook her head. I'd say it's the work of our son, but even he can't make forests out of nothing. That's so cool, cheered Naruto. Hey, when I become a Chunin, can I do that too? Any answer was cut off by the appearance of another hole in the stadium, caused by Minato's student, Itachi, and Yamato bursting in. The tension in Itachi's shoulders relaxed slightly upon seeing a grumpy, and completely whole, Sasuke kicking an unconscious enemy ninja, and Yamato waved to his parents. Jiraiya and Tsunade waved back. Was that you, Yamato? Asked Tsunade, pointing a thumb at the forest. He shook his head. No. It was this one. His teeth were gritted as he glared at his sheepish-looking friend. Hi, sensei, said Kakashi, laughing with a distinct edge of hysteria. We kind of have a problem. Unfortunately for Kakashi, Rin God Why appeared right after they made their dramatic entrance. Hi, sensei, she said, echoing Kakashi's greeting with a wide grin. The Sharingan spun wildly. Aren't you glad to see your student again? She didn't wait for a response. Instead, she raised her arms, and the trees of Training Ground 3 made a sudden appearance in the village proper. Minato leaped back with a groan. Is that Rin? She's the masked figure? The one who attacked Kushina? He said with horror. Yup, replied Kakashi, trying very hard not to break down. Minato sighed, throwing his special kunai into the newly grown trees. God damn it, I thought I'd avoided the Team 7 curse. What curse? You know, the one that says a member of it has to turn evil? Minato flashed down, grabbed an indignant Naruto, flashed somewhere else, and appeared next to Kakashi. Why do you think that I have no living teammates? That makes an uncomfortable amount of sense, mumbled Kakashi. Well, I might avoid the curse this time. He looked at Sakura, who was staring at Rin with undisguised awe bordering on adoration. Never mind. After creating a dozen shadow clones, it only took a moment for Minato to repeat the process with all the other genin and wounded ninja. Once they were safe, Minato's expression changed. As he observed the battlefield below them, full of flames and foliage and destruction, a cold resolve came into his eyes. It spoke of pain and sadness and implacable will. In other words, it was really fucking scary. She was once my student, he said softly. And she was your friend. Once, Kakashi echoed. And this version of Rin, well, it wasn't his, not even close to the one he'd known before. Will you help me stop her? He smiled. Of course. Rin was powerful. The Sharingan gave her the ability to phase in and out of reality. Her Mokutan and artificial flesh increased her chakra stores, far beyond the Rin of Kakashi's old world. Combined with her perfect chakra control, which gave her unparalleled control over her jutsu and regenerative abilities, she was near impossible to stop. She might even be stronger than his world's Obito. However, with the Akatsuki defeated or neutralized, even she was having trouble fending off the combined might Konoha and Suna. The Sannin slowed her down, the Jonin pressed forward, and the two, now three, Kage pinned her in place. Minato appeared next to Kakashi and performed a wind jutsu of his own, helping him redirect the maelstrom of fire away from the village proper. So, wind, said Minato, eyebrow raised. I didn't know you could use all 5 elements. Kakashi winced and ducked under the golden chains that Mei sent towards Rin. Just a little something I was working on. Speaking of things you were working on, you apparently brought a forest into existence? Maybe? Minato's expression was the incredulous epitome of you're lucky we're in a life-or-death battle. Rin waved an arm, and a tree burst from the ground, forcing them to jump apart. Don't get too comfortable, sensei. Why are you doing this, Rin? Because someone has to. Despite your sweet rhetoric, you haven't done anything to stop this hellish system. All you've done is entrench it, she snarled. She created several wood clones and sent them to harry the other fighters, sending 2 to Minato. Minato dodged the clones' attacks and gestured at the devastation surrounding them. And your way is better? To tear down the system, this is necessary. Despite his banter, Minato didn't directly take part in the battle. Minato was flashing around the edges of the stadium, never approaching Rin head-on. Kakashi's genius mind put it together after a second of puzzlement. With a grin, he redoubled his efforts. All they had to do was buy Minato a little more time. It was a whirlwind of destruction. Fire and lightning swirled through gold dust and shimmering chakra strings. Clouds of air and water slammed against newborn forests. Yet, slowly, Rin began to give way. Tsunade tore off her arm, and though Rin grew it back, it opened her to be impaled by maze chains, wasting precious time as she freed herself. Jiraiya stepped in as defense, taking out wood clone after wood clone while Raza served as area control, summoning all the gold dust from the stadium seats to keep the battle inside. Itachi was methodically burning all the trees, cutting Rin's ability to use Mokuton by half, and Tenzo fought for control over the ones remaining. As for Kakashi, he was there any time the momentum started shifting to the other side, pressing forward with a hand full of shrieking lightning. "You don't have to do this, Rin," said Kakashi, getting serious déjà vu as he tried to electrocute her on purpose this time. "In fact, what you're doing is something you shouldn't do. I do have to, Kakashi. For you. For Obito. You'll understand soon." Rin gave him a sad smile that almost made him falter. Almost, because his need for witty banter outweighed attempts to guilt trip. "Actually, Rin." Out of the corner of his eye, Kakashi saw Minato teleport to the middle of the stadium. "You're the one who doesn't get it." Rin couldn't win, and she realized it just a moment too late. Minato slammed his hands against the floor, and the sealed trap he'd placed around the stadium flared to life, trapping Rin in a web of chakra. She struggled to break out, but with each attempt, the web grew tighter. In desperation, she threw her hand out, summoning every bit of her energy in one last gambit. It worked. A solitary tree sprung to life, breaking one of the markers. The chakra web began to flicker. Minato's eyes widened, and Kakashi cursed internally. He's the only thing keeping the web together. If he moves to fix the seal, the entire thing will fall apart. Jiraiya had come to the same conclusion, but he was on the other side of the stadium. Kakashi was closer, and he got there first. Then, he slapped his hands against the marker and did one of the dumber things he'd done in either world. Kakashi offered himself as a replacement. Back when he was a stick-up-his-ass arrogant little brat, Kakashi had listened to Minato ramble about seals. He tuned most of it out, but a little bit had stuck. "Kakashi," Minato had said, "messing with seals is one of the most dangerous things you can do. Messing with other people's seals is beyond stupid. And the more chakra it has, the more likely you are to die. Do you understand?" It was why sealing a tailed beast was something that could only be attempted by seal masters, but tampering with an already sealed beast was beyond suicide. This wasn't sealing the nine tails, but it sure as hell felt like it. An enormous surge of chakra coursed through him, the combined force of Minato and Rin's immense reserves. Energy pushed and pulled through him, battering him like a twig in the ocean, and it took everything Kakashi had to hold on. After an indeterminate number of time and pain, it stopped. Kakashi opened his eyes, and in the middle of the stadium was an unconscious Rin. "It was over. Great job, team," said Kakashi, and he promptly passed out. Chapter 16. Saying goodbye to the trees. Kakashi woke up to the irritating noise of a heart monitor. He cracked open his eyes and twitched his hand, intent on ripping off the miscellaneous devices and escaping, but someone pushed down his arm before he could get far. "None of that now," said a soft, familiar voice. "Oh, I'm still dreaming," he mumbled back. Dreams with Minato-sensei were generally the nicest, except when they took a turn for the being murdered by Nine Tails. His vision was still blurry, so he blinked a few times, waiting for the blurs to crystallize. "So what?" Kakashi jerked upright, remembering that he wasn't in his Konoha anymore. "This wasn't a dream, was it?" Minato smiled at him, confirming the truth. He looked tired but otherwise fine. "You're awake." "Yup, and you're an idiot." "Hey, how many times have I warned you not to tamper with active seals? And then you go offer yourself as a marker, nearly frying what's left of your brain." Kakashi laughed sheepishly. "It was a calculated risk. If I hadn't done that, Rin would have escaped." Reluctantly, Minato conceded the point. "Still, you scared me half to death." "You're so reckless, Kakashi." "Well, you know me, reckless." The door slammed open. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura came tumbling in, pushing the other out of the way. To Kakashi's surprise, they were all wearing Chunin vests. Naruto's eyes were full of tears. Sasuke was studiously pretending not to care while shooting anxious glances in Kakashi's direction, and Sakura was strangely subdued. She wasn't even smiling. Why was that more terrifying than comforting? Before Kakashi could consider that further, Naruto took a flying leap onto the bed, crushing Kakashi and cutting off his flow of air. Sasuke inched onto the foot of bed, doing his best to look bored while also holding Kakashi's ankle in a death grip, as if to keep him from disappearing. Sakura nudged Naruto aside, accidentally elbowing both of them in the process, and sat by this head, eyes downcast as she bunched her fist up in the sheets. "You're okay. You're not dead. I was so worried," bawled Naruto, sniffling. "Dad told me you were being stupid and reckless and also a hero." He threw his arms around Kakashi's neck, increasing his oxygen deprivation. "Yes, that's nice, Naruto," Kakashi managed to say. "I can't really breathe." Naruto ignored him and sniffled louder. "You didn't die," mumbled Sasuke. "Good. That would have been pathetic and—" He trailed off into vaguely intelligible mumblings that sounded something like "we would have missed you." No, it couldn't be. Kakashi was probably imagining that. A Sasuke from any world would never say that. "I'm glad that you can still teach me," said Sakura, voice soft, and for once, she sounded like she meant it. He was probably imagining that too. There was no way his team would be this attached to him, not after all the trouble he put them through. Damn it, it was just dust. Irritation from the hospital environment. It made his eyes a little itchy, that was all. "Ah well. I couldn't leave you brats alone," said Kakashi, smiling. "Though it looks like you'll be leaving me soon. Congrats on your promotions to Chunin. Considering how downright scary his team was, they deserved it." Naruto puffed up with pride. "We're the first team since the Sannin to all make it to Chunin together. I told the proctors I'd murder them if they didn't promote me," said Sakura, matter of fact. Sasuke grunted, which in Uchiha speak meant I agreed to help her because she terrifies me. Naruto's rambling excitement came to a sudden stop as his ears caught up with his mouth. "Wait, leave you? Why would we do that?" "Most teams break up once they reach Chunin," explained Kakashi, managing to adjust his position so he could breathe. His world's Team 7, of course, had broken up for other reasons. "I wouldn't be surprised if you each got apprenticeship offers." Surprisingly, it was Sasuke who spoke up. "Do you have more to teach us?" he said gruffly. "Well, yes, then it's settled," finished Sakura. There was a sudden click and a flash of light, and the four of them turned to the other person in the room who they'd all forgotten about. "Ah," Minato said, holding up the camera. "You all look so cute. Now we have a commemorative photo for the occasion, marking the first time Kakashi passed out with his own genin team." "Dad!" wailed Naruto. "We're ninja. We can't be cute." "Whatever you say, Naruto." Dogpiled by his strange, crazy, and adorable other Team 7, Kakashi couldn't help but feel content. This wasn't his world, but this was still his team. He was glad that there was a mask covering his face, or else his team would see his undeniably sappy expression. He batted Sakura's hand, which was slowly moving to his face, away. "No eye theft, Sakura," she pouted. Minato took another picture and practically cooed. Once Team 7 was forced out of the room by the nurses for starting a fight, Minato filled Kakashi in on the aftermath of the Suna invasion. Rin had been captured and covered in seals, and she was currently enjoying a stay in Tianai. They hadn't had much success in getting anything out of her, but they had time. Most of the Akatsuki were also captured, rehabilitated, in the case of Kisame, or dead. After that was cleaned up, the Kage had discussed the promotions. Team 7 aside, the rank of Chunin was also given to Temari, Gaara, and Tenten. For such a mess, there were surprisingly little casualties on their side. Asuma had broken his leg, Guy was suffering from burns, though the dreaded rainbow suit was still intact, and Kurenai had gotten impaled in the shoulder, but all three would make a full recovery. Everyone else had minor injuries. As things went, it wasn't so bad, especially since Suna had borne the brunt of the damage. Soon, even Minato left, dragged away by Hokage business. The second he walked out of the hospital room, Kakashi took the opportunity to escape. It was child's play to duck out the window and slip into the village proper. As he ambled through the undamaged streets of Konoha, Kakashi sighed. This was Konoha as it had been before Pain, before the Chunin exam invasion. Not bad at all. "I see you're being as reckless as always," Hataki-senpai said, Itachi appearing behind him. "You have escaped from the hospital room despite the warnings of the nurses." Kakashi shrugged, pretending like she hadn't caused him to jump a foot in the air. Honestly, though, what did they expect? Itachi didn't say anything to that. Instead, she studied him with her usual placid expression. After a moment, she finally spoke. "It is good that you've recovered. You were instrumental in defeating Noira, and you saved my own life multiple times." "Thank you," he blinked. Kakashi hadn't expected that. At all. "Well, I was only returning the favor," he said weakly. You watched my back too. I would have been impaled a few times if you hadn't stepped in. Despite being a reminder of this dimension's cruel nature, Itachi wasn't so bad. Maybe, she gave a slight nod. I confess that thanking you was not my only motive for seeking you. The Hokage has requested that I bring you to him. Relieved that they were back in familiar territory, Kakashi nodded back. Lead the way. Kakashi followed Itachi back at Minato's house, where his sensei and the Sannin were sitting around the coffee table, drinking tea. Well, Jiraiya and Minato were drinking tea, but Tsunade was enjoying an early glass of sake. Thank you, Itachi. Both of you sit. Minato gestured to the empty chairs. Do you want any tea? Itachi politely declined, and Kakashi shook his head as he lounged back on the plush seat. Part of him wanted to put his feet on the coffee table, but he decided that the risk wasn't worth it. I swear to God, though, if Minato called me here to talk about that relationship I'm not in, now that we're all here, I think it's time you told us the truth, Kakashi. Minato smiled. What the hell is going on? What? Said Kakashi. Don't play dumb. His smile grew brighter. Since we've jumped from colossal mess to colossal mess, I haven't gotten the chance to interrogate you about it. And since everything you've done was for Konoha, I gave you the benefit of doubt. But now it's time to cough up the truth. Kakashi slowly turned to Itachi. He understood why the Sannin were there, but why was she still here? Minato understood his expression immediately. I mean, I could send her out, but that'd be a bit mean. She's the one who's compiled all the irregularities in your behavior, and it's only fair she knows why. What a lovely reminder of Itachi's authorized stalking. Kakashi was quiet for a little bit as he mused it over. It had been a good run, but now, he didn't really have a choice but to tell the truth. It's a bit of a long story. Minato leaned back. We have time. He took a deep breath. I'm still Kakashi, but I'm not your Kakashi. Best I can tell, I'm actually from an alternate universe that's 5 years in the future, and my soul got swapped with that of your Kakashis. All four of them stared. What the fuck? Said Tsunade finally. Jiraiya was rubbing his head, Minato's expression was frozen in place, and Itachi was gazing into the distance. Kakashi raised a hesitant thumbs up. Yup. Remember when I fainted and ended up in the hospital? You faint a lot, brat. You have to be more specific, Tsunade grumbled. A few months ago, when I inexplicably fell out of a tree after stabbing myself? Finished Kakashi, ignoring the Sannin's interruption. Yes. Minato frowned, his brow furrowed with concentration. That's when it happened. Kakashi shrugged. I have no idea why. There was another moment of silence as everyone digested that piece of information. Then Minato looked up with a sheepish expression on his face. I think I might know why it happened, mumbled Minato. That night was my anniversary and I kind of got really drunk. I was missing her, and I thought that it might be a good idea to mess with some space-time jutsu to see if I could bring an alternative Kushina back. What? Are you fucking kidding me? Said Jiraiya, speaking the thought on everyone's mind. I know it was a horrible idea, but I was really drunk, okay? The next day, nothing happened, so I thought I'd failed. I guess I didn't fail completely, said Minato, scratching his cheek with a pained smile. Minato, you could have gotten yourself the whole village. Sensei, Kakashi interrupted, cutting off Jiraiya's lecture. Besides the ever-present refrain of what the fuck, Kakashi was also considering the implications of Minato's confession, and the pieces were slowly falling into place. Did you base your seal on the Hiraishin? I think so. Minato glanced at him. Why? Because I'm the only one in my world that has an active copy of the seal. Kakashi reached into his weapons pouch and pulled special three-pronged kunai. Even the alternate version of himself always kept it on him. In his world, Kakashi maintained the seal despite Minato's passing, desperately clinging to the memento like a stuffed animal. Tada, only active copy? Minato frowned. What do you mean? The seals are tied to my chakra, so as long as I'm... He blinked. Oh. I'm not Hokage, am I? He said slowly. Ah, you were. Kakashi grimaced. But now you're dead. It happened during the Nine Tails attack. Minato nodded, resigned but not surprised. So Kushina survives in your world? This is going to be awkward. No, she's dead too, Jiraiya spoke up. Did the Sandaime become Hokage again after the attack then? Yes, but he's also dead, replied Kakashi. It's Tsunade now. The woman in question flinched, hand going to her necklace. No fucking way. She poured herself another glass of alcohol and downed it. I need to be much drunker to have this conversation. Her and not Jiraiya? Said Itachi quietly, speaking up for the first time. No, he's dead too, Kakashi said. Jiraiya winced and held out his empty teacup. Princess, pour me a glass. Kakashi could recognize the signs of an impending existential crisis, so he politely glanced at the woman sitting next to him instead. And so are you, Itachi. Dead, I mean. You're also a guy. Itachi looked at him with a blank, uncomprehending expression. Oh, what the fuck, agreed Tsunade. Sorry, Kakashi. Minato gave a weak grimace that was the failed caricature of a smile. But your world sounds awful. Yeah, it sucks. He smiled. It's not all bad though. I still have my Team 7, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura, though they're all older and a bit different. And boy, he really did miss them. Knowing them though, they'd probably saved the world or destroyed it during his absence. Different? Asked Itachi. Before Kakashi even answered, she looked like she regretted opening her mouth. Yeah. Tsunade-sama, Sakura's your apprentice. No fucking way, she said again, shaking her head slowly in abject horror. Kakashi continued, but don't worry. Sure, she has a bit of a temper, but she's serious, dedicated, intelligent, and not, he trailed off. Yeah. And Naruto's, well, pretty much the same, but he's a bit more lonely? Unfairly hated by the village until he single-handedly saved it? No, he probably shouldn't finish that thought either. And Sasuke's a missing nin who abandoned Konoha for Orochimaru after being cursed by him. And he's also incredibly unstable thanks to Itachi massacring every Uchiha besides him when he was 6. Slowly, Itachi stood up, reached over for the sake bottle, and began guzzling it down. Once the bottle became half empty, she brought it close to her body, cradling it like a tiny Sasuke. Minato, Jiraiya and Tsunade were all glaring at the bottle with various degrees of longing and desperation. After traumatizing them into silence for the third time this conversation, Kakashi had to admit that a big part of him was enjoying this. Take that. How does it feel, huh? How does it feel to be mindfucked by an alternate dimension? I don't think I want to know more about your world, said Minato finally. Too bad, sensei. You asked for it. Kakashi grinned. Now, get comfortable. As I said, it's a long story. After Kakashi forcibly enlightened them about his world, leaving them in various states of agony, he had one more request to make. Minato, who looked like a light breeze away from face-planting on the floor, granted it with only a mumbled "be careful," which is why Kakashi was in the bowels of Konoha, sitting in front of a heavily sealed rin. A delicate array of ink covered every inch of her in the room, a chakra straitjacket that kept her immobilized. More seals covered her arms and eye, preventing her from using her stolen abilities. Hello, Rin, he said softly. Now that they weren't fighting, Kakashi took the time to examine her. So this is what an adult version of his teammate looked like. Her face was still heart-shaped, though half of it was pale and scarred, and her purple marking was only on the other half. She was tall and slender, muscled and angular in a way that preteen Rin hadn't been. Kakashi, she rasped. The seals around her throat were glowing. Come to gloat? No, just to talk. Kakashi sat down in front of her, legs crossed. You see, I'm not your Kakashi. Rin stared at him and didn't respond. He'd gotten permission from Minato to do this, but Kakashi still hesitated. This was probably stupid, but he had to try. If his world's version of Tobi could come back to his senses, then maybe this Rin could too. Slowly, Kakashi began to talk. He kept the actionable details to a minimum, briefly going over how Obito had sacrificed himself in that cave, how his version of Rin had died because of him. You're being manipulated, you know, said Kakashi. He gave a smile. What you're doing won't work. You should give up when you can. She stared at him for a long, long time. Wow, said Rin finally. You're more fucking crazy than I am. Kakashi laughed. You're probably right. He stood up with a groan, stretching his arms. Well, it was nice talking to you. The next time we speak, you won't be talking to the same Kakashi. Try to keep that in mind. Zetsu hadn't showed up during the invasion, which meant that it was still out there. Kakashi had warned Minato about it, but he wouldn't be surprised if it caused trouble, or maybe even broke Rin out of prison. Crazier things had happened. Speaking of which, this world's version of Kakashi's also in for a real mindfuck when he returns. For some reason, that made him grin. I might always be doomed to suffer, but at least now, I don't have to do it alone. It took a week for Jiraiya, Kakashi, and Minato to reverse engineer the seal. After sleepless nights of squabbling, ink-stained fingers, and near explosions, they finally had a version that was more likely to send Kakashi back, as opposed to tearing his soul into shreds. That meant today was his last day in this Konoha and his last chance to wreak havoc. Kakashi dropped by Genma's apartment and left a smiley face on his fridge, along with a note to improve his security. He ate dango with Tenzo and Sai, reminding the former that no matter what he said, he'd never be Tsunade and Jiraiya's kid. Kakashi also left Tenzo with the bill as a little added bonus. After that, he appeared in Asuma and Kurenai's hospital room and lectured them on the importance of marriage until Asuma threw a bedstand at his head. Once he finished a game of rock, paper, scissors with Guy, Kakashi even went to his favorite tree behind the memorial stone, the one that had been burned down in his world. He was going to miss that tree. Finally, he appeared in Training Ground 3, where Team 7 was waiting for him. "You're on time?" said Naruto, starting with a shout and trailing off into a disturbed shudder. "Are we sure that it's Kakashi-sensei and not an imposter?" Sasuke took out a kunai and glared. Sakura frowned at her teacher with an equal amount of suspicion. "We can stab him to make sure." Kakashi cleared his throat. "No stabbing, please." Sasuke attacked anyway with a fireball, and Kakashi casually sidestepped Sasuke's attempt and tripped him. Sakura and Naruto were right behind him, so Kakashi kicked her into a tree, dodged Naruto's sloppy Rasengan, and threw him into Sasuke. "Now that that's over with." He crouched down. "Are you ready to listen?" "Yes, sensei," they mumbled in unison. "Wonderful." Kakashi looked at them fondly. As much as he appreciated his older team, it was nice having a bunch of little ducklings. Even if they were Chunin, and technically ranked higher than two of their counterparts. He cleared his throat. "Look, kiddos. Things are going to be a little different after today. I'm going to be relying on your help, okay? Try not to terrorize me too much. Seriously, I pity other Kakashi. He's going to suffer. So much." "What are you talking about?" said Naruto, frowning. He glanced at Sasuke and Sakura, whose faces were also scrunched up in confusion. "You'll see." Kakashi ruffled their hair and smirked at their squawks. "I'll miss you kids." "Wait a minute." Kakashi waved and disappeared in a puff of smoke. They were back in Konoha's underground, far away from anything that could be destroyed. Jiraiya and Minato had finished the ceiling array, and Kakashi stood in the center of the delicate patterns of ink. After drawing a spiral on Kakashi's hand, Minato pressed his hands to the floor, prepared to activate the seal, but he hesitated. "Kakashi," he said slowly. "You might not be the Kakashi from my world, but you're still my student." Minato gave him a bright smile. "My counterpart would be very proud of you." "I know that I am." Kakashi swallowed, feeling the lump in his throat. How many times had he stayed up at night, wondering about that same thing? It felt like half his insecurities had evaporated with that one comment. "Thanks, sensei. Even if you did cause a fucking mess of unseen proportions," added Jiraiya. "You didn't do so bad, kid." Kakashi gave him a totally not watery smile, one that was definitely manly and cool and not at all emotional. "I appreciate that. I think, and you should come visit sometime," said Minato brightly. "Maybe next time you can bring your team." Kakashi blinked, and Jiraiya was pinning his former student with a similarly incredulous look. "Sensei, how the hell am I supposed to do that?" Minato winked, giving him a grin that meant nothing but trouble. "You'll see." Before Kakashi could respond, Minato took in a deep breath, and all the seals glowed with blinding light. After feeling like he was being simultaneously squeezed through a very tiny pipe and stretched thin, everything went black. When Kakashi opened his eyes, he was holding an ink brush. He slowly turned around, taking stock of where he was. It looked like an apartment. Not his, but an apartment nonetheless. "So I do the squiggle like this?" said a familiar voice. A blonde, teenage knucklehead was staring at a paper, a similar ink brush in hand. "That's the wrong symbol, Naruto. You'll blow us up." A tall, non-bandaged Sakura was scolding him, a diamond prominently displayed on her forehead. She also had a brush, paper, and inkwell. "Naruto?" said Kakashi hesitantly. "Sakura, didn't we already go over this?" grumbled Sasuke from the couch in the corner. "Yes, despite being much bigger than you remember, that's Naruto. She's Sakura, and she's not related to Danzo. Yes, I'm that man's, not woman's, brother. Do we need to say it to you slowly?" "No," Kakashi gave him a thoughtful look, "but I'm more concerned by you being here and not running around like a homicidal maniac." "What, did the war end without me?" They all froze. "Kakashi-sensei?" Naruto asked, eyes widening. Is that you, sensei?" Sakura spilled her inkwell on the table. "Are you our sensei? Where have you been? What happened?" Even Sasuke stood up, padding over to the table with his usual grace but a hint of urgency. "It was crazy!" shouted Naruto, pushing his chair back. Suddenly, you were all like freaked out and like complaining about dead people and suddenly knew like everything about seals. It was so weird. And hey, when did you get that tattoo? Asked Naruto, pointing at his hand. Kakashi glanced down at the back of his hand and saw a small spiral, one that definitely hadn't been there before. At least, not in this world. Oh. So that's what you meant by that, Minato-sensei. He'd have to examine the new tattoo in depth and see what his old teacher had in store for him. Well? Said Sakura impatiently. You're not answering our questions. Kakashi gave them a bright smile. Despite it all, he was glad to be home. Sorry I'm late. I fell off a tree and landed in a different world.